Chapter 322 The Assembly 4. Many thanks to @Slick Trick and @Dark Priest. Also, happy birthday Dark Priest, and I will see to your request. John left the king's study, and returned back to the throne room, where the assembly would continue in an hour. He looked around and wanted to sit in some quiet place, but a palace guard came to him. Thane John of Winterhold. Yes. A Dunmare lady says she is your captain of security detail, is looking for you in the garden of the palace. Oh. Jull is here, fine, thank you. John nodded and looked around the place again until he found someone. Headmaster Viarmo. Oh. If it is not Thane John? Viarmo, the headmaster of the Bard's College, and the famous High Elf, who is quite popular between the Nords, recognized John right away. Both of them were undoubtedly the tallest two in the meeting. John was a firemane and Viarmo was a high elf. What vexes high elves about John is that he is always a tad taller than them. I was hoping we could talk. A mutual friend of ours sent me with regards, John said. A mutual friend between me and Thane John? Must be quiet the character. By any chance, is it student John Battleborn or student Linley Starsung? No, it is neither John nor Sviti. Why don't we walk to the garden? Well, gladly. Excuse me, gentlemen. John and Viarmo acted with etiquette and walked out the throne room. Both of them were smiling at each other with total ease. Will Thane John participate in the tournament this year? A lot of fans are waiting for you to come and do a good show again. Viarmo said. Really? I would love to entertain, but sadly if I joined the tournament, it would be no more than bullying. I already won once and now I won't even struggle. Also, my brothers are busy. John Battleborn is newlywed and spending his honeymoon on vacation, while Wulfr is on a trip to Orsinium, some sort of blacksmithing contest. Oh, the annual forge tournament of Orsinium. Nords don't get easily invited to that one. So that's its name? Why so? As you know, Nords and Orcs are not the greatest friends throughout history, especially the Orcs of Orsinium. They have a cult of Trinimac that considers the Nordic god Shor or Lorcan a mortal enemy. Oh, I see. I think Wulfr can handle some stingy Orcs. John and Viarmo were both birds of a feather. They knew each other's intentions from the very start and their forces have collided many times before. How are the things around Skyrim by the by? John asked. I would have asked Thane John the same question thinking you would know better than I. Then you? Headmaster Viarmo, please don't overestimate me. Bards go where others cannot, and I am sure words travel better in Hafengar than Winterhold. John said. Really? And here I thought bathhouse wenches would do a way better job than bards. Viarmo said. As I said, you overestimate me, John replied. The two were naturally talking about their spy organizations. They were tossing words at each other because their interests went into a conflict lately. Anyway, the two of them reached the garden outside the palace and saw two women waiting for them. Headmaster Viarmo, let me introduce you to my security captain, Julliner. And this one here is surely our mutual friend. Say hello, Lizette. As John pointed to the other woman, Viarmo narrowed his eyes. It was indeed his agent Lizette, the one he planted in Winterhold a few months ago and was constantly reporting to him. He looked between John and Lizette. How long were you captured? He asked. A few months, Lizette replied. Thane John, you captured a bard of my people. I'd love to say that the Bard's College is an official guild that has the right to protect its people in a court of law. We are in one right now and I implore you to let release my bard. Viarmo said. He offered Lizette a legal way to escape her captors. He looked at John with cold eyes. John brought Lizette to the Blue Palace, where he has no shred of power and Viarmo has many friends around the place. He was simply in a better position. Really? Is that how are you going to play it? John understood what he wanted to do and looked at Lizette. Lise, tell him how many times we slept together. 7. How did it feel? Very good. What were the orders you took from Headmaster Viarmo? To find information about Thane John Dare and relay it to Solitude coded in the book I am writing. What are the motives of Headmaster Viarmo? Find out information and sell it. What is his allegiance? No one. Headmaster Viarmo works for the ones who may do good for Skyrim and widen the network of the bards. Fine enough. Viarmo lashed out and stopped John. John nodded, looked at Viarmo with a wide smile. The latter seemed disturbed by John's action but forced himself to calm down. By the way, Lisette lost the ability to lie. You can ask her anything and she will answer with complete honesty. John said with a proud look at Lisette. Yeah, truth. Wonderful. Viarmo was still in a sour mood. What can I do for you, Thane John? John's smile got even wider. I am afraid this is the wrong question. The right one is, what can I do for you, Headmaster Viarmo? Viarmo's eyes narrowed as he looked at John and tilted his head a little. I am afraid you will need to be a bit clearer here. Simple, you sent Lisette to me way before I become a man of power or anything. You saw something within me and I am also indebted to you that you took care of my friends who studied at the college. Let bygones be bygones and let's start anew. John said. I am afraid that is not possible. Viarmo said. Lisette is one of my people and now his mind is your hostage. Will you trust anyone like that? Her mind? I am afraid you misunderstood. Lisette is completely free from any hypnosis or illusion or any of that. She has her will intact and she can do whatever she wants. She just can't lie, that's all. How is that even possible? The minds of us mortals have many functions that make the person seek survival. Resisting the idea of jumping off a cliff, resisting consuming harmful stuff, fearing wild beasts, telling truths that may hurt us. All I did was to simply switch off the one function that rules the thing about truths and lies. Lisette's instincts can't lie anymore, of course, I can fix that. Viarmo was silent still. He looked at his student and shuddered from the thought of having her completely toyed by John. He signed up for this mission of information a long time ago knowing the risks, and he was bitten by foes scarier than John, but John was way too ruthless and his methods were all shady and secretive. I am sorry to force you to play by my rules, but that's what we both do, right? We can't win, so we enforce our rules, John said. Viarmo sighed and didn't say anything. My bard, can you please? You don't even need to ask. John smiled and walked behind Lisette. He held her head gently and sneaked the skeleton key with his other hand. He simple undid the lock he did on her brain. Here you go, Lisette. You are home safe and sound as promised. Before she could reply, Viarmo took her hand and dragged her to his side. Can we talk business now? John asked. Very well. By the way, was that the same thing you did for Jarl Career? Manipulating his brain? Viarmo asked. I don't know what you are talking about, John replied with an answer that made him look guilty. Viarmo saw Lisette off and looked at John again. Dealing with you is like walking into the darkness, Thane John. What we don't know is usually what gets us killed. You are right. That's why people make friendships with each other rather than sending spies. John's answer made Viarmo laugh. Ha! Friends? Look around you, Thane John. We're all liars here. Why think people like us do what we do? Why did you use your whatever that was on the girl? It is all the same answer in the end. Everyone is your enemy here, Thane John. Oh, what a miserable fellow you are. I already know so. I just said that you needed to know who I am and you failed, and I promise you that you will always fail. The things I keep hidden are hidden for a reason, and if they are open to the world, then I don't want to be blamed for the actions I will be forced to make. Now, these actions will sink a lot of people in a shithole, and that includes anyone who is related to me and the whole damn Winterhold. You said you wanted your network to reach in Winterhold? Ask me nicely. Viarmo started thinking before talking. Why are you doing that? He asked. Winterhold is my beautiful poem. Even though I was not born there, I love that place and it is my home. Don't think of it too much, I am a poet too. I want the matters in my hold to flow naturally and I can't be the hero every day. One day I will die, disappear, or fall into some sort of crisis that I can't survive. I don't want others to see Winterhold as a weak organization without me. With your network inside, I will be sure that the information flow won't get hijacked by someone I can't deal with. The Thieves' Guild control the information flow in the streets for now, but they are getting greedy for politics. I want you to fill that place for me and limit their influence. Also, you too will be limited from the streets and from me and my family. The top dog of information in Winterhold is me. Viarmo nodded. The black pigeons, you mean? He said. John tilted his head. It is the name of our Team Zero in the streets, Joel said. Oh, I see, a black pigeons. I'd have preferred cats. Viarmo looked from John to Jolinar. I assume you are the mysterious assistant of Thane John. Mysterious? Me? Jolinar asked. Of course. The dark elf lady that appeared with Thane John in Winterhold 2 years ago. No one knows where you came from or what your origins are. Thane John boarded the ship from Solitude alone and landed on Winterhold with you. I call that mysterious, Viarmo said. Didn't I say not to look after me or my family? John said with cold eyes. Ha ha. No need to worry about me, Thane John. These are the general information we managed to get. We didn't manage to go further anyway. Please don't. But more importantly, do you find my terms acceptable? Using us to close the gap between your personal information network and the Thieves' Guild? I find it very satisfying. John and Viarmo shook hands. From now on, let's have a healthy partnership. My security captain Jolinar, my housecarl Trudvar and my secretary Siv are the ones your people can contact in Winterhold. My fiancé will take over my position if I wasn't available. Thank you, Thane John. Thank you too, Headmaster Viarmo. John was about to turn but he paused and looked at Viarmo again. I had 2 requests in mind. Well, I'll see what I can do. How can I help? Viarmo said. The first is regarding the Imperial Legion in Winterhold. The ones in command right now are really a bother. I was wondering if you can introduce me to a better candidate that can serve Winterhold's methods with a strong motive. A legionary with some bad feelings about the Thalmor will do very well. Ah, I see. I have a close friend of mine, a legate in the Legion. He will fit what you want really well, but you need to have an open mind when you deal with him. Fine by me. The second matter I had in mind is Thane Erikr. You are making him the second matter in your mind, while he is making you the first. This will be good. What do you want to know? Not much, just what is he up to now? John and Joel walked into the Blue Palace together once again. Sigh. You are sighing for the next 10 minutes? Joel said. Sorry, I am just a bit disappointed. In that slimy Viarmo. Nope. Viarmo is good, I am talking about Erikr. What is there to talk about? We should kill him and make his mother wear his entrails around her neck. Did you come across Shiagarath lately? More importantly, trying to defame then kill me, huh? I wish to know how he will do that. Just let me gut him like the stinky fish he is. No need. He can endanger anyone I love and we are together. Let's see what he will do. You sure of winning? Love always win, Joel. Once a day and twice on Sunday. That sounds like our sex schedule. It sure does. But do you trust him? Your new friend, Viarmo. Shouldn't we have brought Alina so that she can tell if he lies to us? He is not my friend, he is not my enemy. He is both and not at the same time. I expect him to betray me and work with me. A handshaking and a hand stabbing. Expect that from Viarmo and you will know how to handle him. His motives are unclear. I don't know what he wants or what he is or what is he planning to do next. My only advantage on him is that he can't figure out my methods, and I agreed to keep him close and well monitored. He won't move a muscle in Winterhold without us knowing. I want you to learn how to deal with people like him in the future, Joel. Fine. Jelena replied with a sweet and mischievous smile. John walked through the door of the throne room, walked in. High King Torrig was not there yet, but his arrival seemed to be announced. Everyone was looking at John and Career now. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon, com/Eldokmizi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 323 The Assembly, 5. Extra Chapter, every plus $10, Patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter, 5,000 vote. Extra Chapter, 8,000 vote. As John took his seat back and High King Torrig returned, the meeting started to review the trade and the economic status. Outside the talk, Viarmo was sitting on the side in the back seats listening. A figure in robes came out of nowhere and sat in the empty seat beside him. Headmaster Viarmo. A barely audible voice talked to him. Lady Sybil. It was none other than Sybil Stentor, the court mage. His Grace is concerned, Headmaster. You seem to be making quite the friendships lately. Viarmo didn't reply and looked between Torrig and Sybil. I am afraid I don't know. What did John dare ask for? Sybil cut his words. Information. About Erikr. Good, what is there to know? Viarmo turned his head to Sybil, bothered by the fact that she was asking a lot of questions all of a sudden. His action made Falk Firebeard aware that Sybil and Viarmo were talking to each other. He, who was standing close to the High King, snuck skillfully closer to Sybil and Viarmo. Wizard, don't you have other business to attend to? Falk spoke with a hint of hostility towards Sybil. Steward, I am just here attending to my business, Sybil replied with the same amount of hostility at Falk. The two kept looking at each other until Sybil decided to break it down. Fine, if you excuse me. She stood up and went back to where she came from. Seeing her walk off, Viarmo kept thinking, why would that shut-in court mage come out all of a sudden? She is not a usual face around the court, even though her work is very important. Also, Falk was unusually hostile. His Eminence would appreciate it if you keep your tongue held, or you will lose it, Bard. Viarmo sighed and nodded without much to say. In this day in particular, the court was really tense. Sybil wants to investigate something mysterious, John and Erikr going against each other and Falk looking after every little detail. Everyone was not sure how to expect in this day at all. The old holds, Winterhold, Eastmarch, Rift and Pale, except Winterhold, are having not attending this meeting. The ones attending are not fully supportive of the Empire, as Whiterun and Winterhold are clear about that. Even though Mortal is taking a similar stance, being close to Solitude is affecting them quite very much. One can think that this assembly is going to conclude the sides of the coming conflict, and everyone will take a role. Unless Ulfric is willing to speak, things won't end well for Skyrim. The tension was high between the upper echelons too. Right now, they were discussing how to distribute the trade routes with the other nations around Skyrim, now that Ulfric and his allies are closing their route. The East Empire Company can mostly go anywhere, including Windhelm and all the Stormcloak territories. The Dare Dragon Company has no land routes because Winterhold was surrounded by the Stormcloak territories, so it only will depend on its fleet. The other holds were in a much better state, but Whiterun was going to have serious problems as it is going to be in the center of a war started, and it was also the center of the trade routes, thus a lot of security was needed, and that is going to shoot up the prices. The wages will go less because every hold will be arming itself to the teeth from now on. Jarl Career and John skillfully avoided this problem by using the excuse of rebuilding Winterhold and saying that they are crowded on the populace. In the end, Winterhold has agreed to let in Imperial Legion, and it will take care of them but won't be letting any other outsiders interfere in its business. John made a firm stance and declined all the requests of the Imperial ambassador to send in military envoys into the cities itself. The second break was about time, but suddenly a displeased participant voiced his complaint. So after all this, you are going to tell me that Winterhold is not going to participate in anything other than opening its roads? Is that even acceptable? That was Jarl Sigir of Falkreath. As we said, Winterhold is in a rebuilding phase, and it will take years to recover. Jarl Career replied with the same excuse. Are you kidding me? According to what we all know, the population in Winterhold is greater than both Falkreath and Jalmarch. Also, its economy is based on one entity that controls every major resource in the hold. Something is telling me you are not even trying to help, Jarl Career. Sigir kept pressing further and glared at John. John kept quiet most of the meeting, but he was staring coldly at Sigir. Tell me, Jarl Career, Thane John. Why isn't that company listed in the Imperial Guild of Commerce? How can we be sure that what you said is true if there is no legal document to support your claims that this company is not some rogue organization that is lawlessly taking over Winterhold? Sigir directed his attack towards John. John finally decided to speak. My company is conglomerate that has its unique structure and works by the directions of the Hold Admiration and its supreme authority. Jarl Career has given me a task, and we agreed to make the best of everything we can use. Regarding the Imperial Guild of Commerce, our license is taking a bit of time to be issued, but our friends at the East Empire Company and the other companies are doing their best to hasten the process. John said and looked at Vittoria Vici. She nodded in agreement to all what he said. The Nord businessman and the Imperial businesswoman were pretty much in a total agreement, as everyone could see. What is more concerning is not what the company do, Thane John. It is its history, and based on what was it established? A third person joined the fray. Please elaborate, Thane Erikr. Sigir rhymed with Erikr right away. Yes, please do so. John also rhymed with them as he sat with an amused face. I am not sure what you want me to elaborate. The one who has some explaining to do is you, Thane John. Erikr said. Do I? Fine, about what exactly? As I said, the origins or your company, how it started, and many other details about your projects and your unordinary method. I am sure every company in Skyrim, whether on our side or the other, has already shown displeasure about that Dare Dragon company. Erikr said disdainfully, and no one else stopped him. It was a full John against Erikr, and everyone was waiting for the main event. John stood from his seat and walked to the center face to face with Erikr. Let's see. I am a fan of the anarcho-capitalism. It is a mix of the sweet capitalism and the anarchy system, even though the latter is obviously hard to apply in this day and age. Capitalism is simply an economic system based on the private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. It results for certain businesses to grow large and legally take over most of the other businesses in its habitat. For example, rather than having a few alchemy shops scattered around the hold with wasted efforts and toxic rivalry between them, we simply bring them together under one roof and one name with designated wage system, merit system, and set of laws. Simply putting all these minds and hands together is much better than keeping them scattered in their workshops and foolery. Great ideas support each other, and a week's work gets done in a day. That's how the Dare Pharmacy does things. Wait, you put all the independent craftsmen of Winterhold in one workshop? Ambassador Pavo shot up. Yes. And they work together? Just like that? No master and disciple relationship between them? Yes. How is that even possible? The ambassador asked. Alchemists were simply the most arrogant beings under heaven, even more cranky than most mages. Bringing a few to work together is clearly not possible by normal means. I just said how the company does things. I won't reveal anything regarding my internal affairs or secrets of the trade. Please excuse me, Sir Ambassador, John said. So you force people to work together? Erica said. I don't know which sick psychology gave you the right to accuse me of such a thing. What did you say? It is what you heard, retard. The atmosphere was chilly around John. He was doing his best to not go wild on someone who was bluntly framing him of something he didn't do, or maybe he did but with good intentions at heart. Erica was feeling that he was slapped publicly. A boy who is not 18 yet and slandered him in front of the High King with an ever so casual tone. John Dare, watch your tongue. Oh, I love threats. What will you do? John's aura was already hard to suppress. An aura of a tyrant is impossible to keep in check if its owner was being slandered. It was as if it had life on its own and wanted to shred Erica to pieces. Enough you two. Fox spoke. Thane John, Thane Erica, this is not the time or the place for your problems. Unless it is a matter of the court and the nation, take it outside. John didn't even look to Erica and headed back to his seat. He still hasn't answered about the origin of that company. Erica didn't back down the slightest. A company coming out of nowhere and using unusual activities to rise in the poorest hold to completely control it in the span of 2 years. Not just that, we are all aware of the origins of John Dare, an orphan from the slums of Riften who happened to have the bloodline of one of Skyrim's big clans. Hear this out. His origins is Riften, a territory of the Repels. His bloodline is Firemane, a clan that doesn't follow the imperial pantheon and lives in the wilds of Eastmarch, which is a Stormcloak territory. He gained a lot of money from gods nowhere grew at a speed no one else can achieve by normal means. He never fell into any conflict with the old holds regarding his actions, and his trades can go anywhere in Eastmarch where Jarl Ulfric rules. My theory is that either he is spying for Ulfric, someone who is in deep cahoots with a clan to take over Winterhold, or some sort of Daedric cultist that spreads the influence of a Daedra. Erica's passionate speech echoed far and wide in the court. His voice was loud and he looked to everyone in the eyes while pointing the fingers of accusation towards John. Some has already seen some sense in Erica's words, but what they couldn't fathom was the smile on John's face. His mood was completely the opposite of some time ago. Asterisk clap 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 asterisk bravo. John was openly mocking Erica. Is that really all you got? Accusing me of working for the old holds. Well, Winterhold is an old hold, the oldest of them all really. The thing between the old hold and the new hold was a really good idea to use, I give you that. It is like the historical classico of Skyrim, East versus West. Well played, almost fooled me myself. John turned around and stood in the middle once again. I will entertain you, Thane Erica. Let's see, you said I am helping the Firemane taking over Winterhold. Mr. Thongvar Silverblood, is it against the law by any chance? John directed the question to Thongvar Silverblood, whose clan basically owns every rock in the Reach Hold, including the prison of Sidna Mine, which is their private property. No. The latter replied. Good, that aside, you also suspected me of either being a Daedra cultist or a spy for Ulfric. I am not answering the first because it is dumb and you are dumb too, the latter can be a bit of concern. Fine, I admit it, I like Ulfric Stormcloak. What? Is it new to you? Everyone likes Ulfric. He's a damn war hero. He saved Markarth. He speaks the Thursdayum and his voice is so deep that you can't help but want to hear him just speak over and over. Everyone knows that. John started walking around with the same smile on his face. His words caused most of the people to have beads of cold sweat all over them. John looked at High King Torrig and spoke. Ulfric Stormcloak is a man from the Age of Heroes. Everyone, tell me, when was the last time we had someone like that? Basically, we didn't. At this day and age, Skyrim has no heroes. The world itself didn't see a hero since, let's see, the hero of Cratch and the Saint Martian Septim at the Oblivion Crisis, and Emperor Titus Mede too, at the Great War. Ulfric could have been one, but simply he is not because he is a man of short temper who was let down by many. Y'all, Ulfric's cause is just, but his timing couldn't be worse, we all know that. Am I a supporter of Ulfric? No. Will I raise my sword to kill another Nord because the god we both worship was banned by a treaty that we can simply ignore? No. Will I raise a company and rebuild a hold to wage war with it? John looked around and questioned the people. He was already taking the lead of the conversation, and Ericer was having a hard time putting up anything to face John with. Damn, John even said Ulfric is a hero in front of the whole assembly, and no one said anything to stop him. Now, you want to know how I brought money to build my company, right? John stood proudly in front of everyone. You know, I won a tournament 2 years ago, and hoarded a lot of money from that one. I remember, I almost ruined your gambling house that year, crippled the team you were betting on all by myself while sitting on a chair, and hoarded a shit ton lots of money. You hate me for it, right? I took your money and then took over the business with the College of Winterhold, the same business you were trying to establish. Lies. All lies. 2,000 septim wouldn't have made a decent amount for anyone to start a business. Who do you think you are fooling here? Ericer lashed. You want to know my dirty little secret, don't you? Fine, I will tell you all here in this court in front of the High King himself. The truth is always the most boring answer. The truth is, my mama is so rich, she is an archwizard, and she makes a lot of money that she can't even spend in one lifetime. John said and spread his arms around to the public, while smiling left and right. Yep, you heard me right. I am my mama's boy, and I make her proud every day since the day she adopted me in. I am her legacy apprentice and her only son. She is an archwizard, and she leads the mysticism department in the college. Sorry to ruin your fantasies about spy conspiracies and Daedric plots, but it's the truth. People were at a loss for words. Someone was simply admitting that he is his mama's boy and boasting around that she is rich, powerful, and gives him all the money he wants. Wasn't this the recipe of disaster that makes arrogant noble kids and corrupted rich boys? Even though these descriptions wouldn't fit with John, whose heroics are publicly known and his power is already so domineering. Was it simple to admit that he took money from his adoptive mother and build a kingdom of business by it? There is no way that this was a simple answer. Hell, all the people around this room are all rich and powerful. If they gave money to their kids at the age of 16 and told them to make something like John with it, it is simply a pure waste of money. And yet, here it is. Someone with an unusual personality and made unusual things. They all look at John and forget his real age. According to the reports, he is not 18 yet. Not yet 18, and in the fanciest room in Skyrim addressing the most powerful people. The realization hit again and again. He is someone who can speak for his own, act for his own, and even turn the poorest hold into the most mysterious one so far. Just who is he? What is he capable of? How did he do it? All these questions and more started to dig deep in the hearts of the attendants, from the Imperial Ambassador to the Jarls and Thanes. The youngest person in this room was John Dare, who's still not 18, and the one right older than him is the 22-years-old Vittoria Vici, then all the rest are over 30. The one amused from this show the most was High King Torrig. He was keeping tabs on John for a while, and he knew some of John's capabilities better than anyone in the room. The way John destroyed Ericer was the best thing he saw in court for a long while. That's all I've got, Thane Ericer. Happy now? You made me admit that I am Mama's boy and she gives me money. Well, at least the money I have a valid source. God knows where others get money from. John switched from defense to offense and threw a rock at Ericer. His word made people think. Ericer is a vicious character and his money was not the cleanest. It was not proved, but a lot of smuggling and shady businesses were managed by Ericr. Ericr didn't take those words well and glared at John fiercely. That's a lot of nerve you have, boy. Name's John Dare, midget. Thane John for your likes. Don't force my hand. Neither you nor that little Winterhold can withstand. Thane Ericr, choose your next words rather carefully. The one who stood up was Jarl Career. Simply using a hold for intimidation when its Jarl is around is another recipe for disaster. Even Torrig and his aides were about to scold Ericr. His words are enough to make him push Winterhold into the Stormcloak camp. Even John wouldn't bother by then and happily shake hands with Ulfric. Still, Ericr had another chip in hand. He looked at Jarl Career and grinned. You. Who in oblivion are you? He said while pointing at Career. John narrowed his eyes and the people around felt that this was still far from over. John won the first round, but there was that little thing that was still in their mind. Jarl Career. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal. me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon. com/Eldokmizi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 324 The Assembly 6-7. Okay folks, this is a 5K word chapter. Originally had to be 2 separate chapters, normal and extra by comes to you by @DarkPriest. Still, the events forced me to put them in one. Important, from this point onward things are getting messy for John. It will be chaos and mayhem. If you didn't drop the novel by the next 10 chapters, you will have a good surprise. Just saying. Freakin' joy. Ericr had another chip in hand. He looked at Jarl Career and grinned. You. Who in oblivion are you? He said while pointing at Career. John narrowed his eyes and the people around felt that this was still far from over. John won the first round, but there was that little thing that was still in their mind. Jarl Career. What do you mean? How dare you address a Jarl like that? Jarl Career said. Really now? The grin on Ericr's face grew wider. You are the Jarl Career? The one we know? The one who came every year screaming kick off the mages, banish the college from Winterhold, they ruin the hold and what not? You don't sound like the same to me, Jarl Career. Here, your Thane is a mage. He took money from his mother, who is also a mage, and made a business on your hold mostly based on magic. You, the same Jarl that no one ever heard a word of for 2 years are, now come with a mage and ever so comfortable speaking about mages as if they are your next of kin. Isn't this suspicious, folks? He looked between John and Career. This was his final card, the sure one. I will admit it, Thane John is a good businessman. But what of Jarl Career? He wouldn't have allowed a mage to start a business in his hold, let alone appoint him a Thane no matter what. The man in front of you look like Jarl Career, sounds like him, speaks and moves like him. You all made sure of this before the meeting and during the first rest. But did it answer any of the questions we had? No. How could John dare become the Thane? The answer is simple. Thane John put a spell the mind of Jarl Career. He did something with magic, and we all know it is possible. I looked into that matter, and it all started the day he retrieved that very helm that Jarl Career is wearing. That helm was used by John Dare to manipulate Jarl Career. Many people in Winterhold are aware of the fact, yet no one cared for their own convenience. But this is a court of law. John Dare, release Jarl Career from your spell right here, right now. The unlawful taking over of authority of a part of Skyrim and the Empire is treason punishable by death. Release him at once and you might live to fight another day. All eyes landed on John waiting for his reaction, but he kept an expressionless face. You scum. You say I got manipulated? I will not accept this. I demand that this man gets arrested for slandering the Jarl of Winterhold. Jarl Career lashed at Ericr. Now, Jarl Career. You will thank me at the end of the day. Ericr spoke haughtily. John Dare, last chance. You can't win this. Your company, money, family, and everything you built so far will go to waste if you don't cooperate. We will give you the benefit of admitting your wrongdoings. John didn't move a muscle, bat an eye, or draw a breath. He was still. Your Grace, this is too much. Jarl Career directed his talk to Torrig. Thane Erikr has slandered me, my hold and my loyal Thane for too much. Thane John said that he will take on whatever Thane Erikr throws at him, but this is not acceptable. There are lines and crossing them will result for consequences. Severe ones. Jarl Career was making a strong stance for John, but sadly no one believed him. The one thing that these people were sure of was that John was really mind-controlling Career. It was the only possible answer for Career's transformation. Torrig stood up from his chair, and everyone else did. Thane Erikr, that's enough! He suppressed Erikr. Everyone looked at Torrig thinking that he is going to sacrifice a Jarl for the sake of a Thane. Career was known to be an incompetent Jarl and John was a business genius. Even Torrig wanted to give the title of the Jarl to John to avoid this conversation. Still, John refused the title. But now is not the time to regret. Many great leaders didn't get the chance to grow to their full potential, and surely what John Dare achieved won't be torn apart. The least punishment he can take was to get his title stripped and his assets confiscated. He may eventually get pardoned, but he is losing this one. The crown will be forced to appoint someone else as the head of the Adair Dragon Company, and everyone knew who coveted this position the most. Still, the crime of unlawful taking over of authority is the most severe one to those who were sitting in this room. Most of them are rulers, and letting such a crime go means it may happen to them one day. It was simply unforgivable. Your Grace, Jarl Career wanted to say something, but Torrig cut him. I am not sure of how magic works, and I didn't learn much about the arcane arts. What Thane Erikr said raises a strong point that I can't merely ignore. Forgive me, Jarl Career, Thane John. This matter should be investigated. Jarl Career seemed frustrated, but John was as silent as ever. The two of them were going to be investigated and questioned, and surely they didn't like it. Erikr was all smiles as he turned to his aide Mellerin, nodding for him. The latter stepped forward towards Jarl Career. John saw that, and his poker face turned to a frown. He didn't want this curse of events to take this turn. Back off, elf. This is not the day I get judged by a Falmer cucksucker. John spoke with his aura finally getting out of control. The red battle spirit of the tyrant was getting thicker around him, and made him look like the devil. Those who were around him panicked and backed off. Not even the High King was spared from the suppressive sensation that made everyone simply inferior. Mellerin, the High Elf mage, could barely stand in front of John's stare. It was a beast and prey. One wrong move and death is inevitable. Sadly, John wanted him to move away, and the latter irritated John by freezing at his place. John's expressions twisted into pure anger, and he spoke. Faz. Fear. A word of power was unleashed from John's tongue and assaulted Mellerin head-on. The High Elf could keep up no more. No. Please, no. The sight of a powerful mage like Mellerin crumbling before John was heart-sinking. The Imperial Ambassador was a powerful warrior, but he felt tight in his chest by the amount of suppression John was giving off. The killing intent was real. All of the people here were in the presence of a monster. They recognized the Thursdayum very well. A power only the fiercest of the Nord commanders could employ at the Great War, and a lot of elves were shouted to pieces. Most of the veterans couldn't help but remember the days. The dismay, a shout that John unleashed, was only one word, but it caused Mellerin to collapse and run off like a rat. John suppressed his aura once again, and then looked at High King Torrig. Never in his days did Torrig experience such an aura. The people who kept their ground in this room other than him were Jarl Balgruuf, who seemed very calm, Jarl Idgord, who was glaring at Erikr, Jarl Igmund barely sat at the end of his chair, and Jarl Career was completely composed. The imperial ambassador and some other thanes and attendants were powerful enough to withstand John, who didn't even move a muscle or cast a spell. He only shouted one word of the dragon tongue, and most of the people were about to fall and worship. Torg realized the mistake and glared at Ericr, who acted way too comfortable. John clearly was not the same person who won the tournament 2 years ago. It was a mistake to assume like that. John surely has grown in 2 years, but the growth was shocking. He who was a junior is now making the seniors tremble. Torg only looked at the woman at the other end of the room and nodded to her. Her movements were light and swift. She walked completely unbothered by John and stood in front of him. Thane John, I understand your anger. This one is on us, but please do mind that you are in the Blue Palace. John looked down at her with his eyes and finally nodded after a long breath. I apologize, Your Grace, Lady Sybil. She nodded and looked towards Jarl Career. Everyone held their breath as Sybil Stentor stepped in. She was going to be the judge. My Jarl, may I? She asked Career with a polite tone of a Breton, and he sighed and took off the helm of Winterhold. Sybil took the helm and turned it towards Torg. He nodded and she held the helm or Winterhold with both hands. Blue mystic light enveloped the helm and Sybil started a divination on the magic power of the helm. The light of her spell fades as quickly as it was cast. She kept looking at the helm for a while with a weird look in her eyes. She frowned for a second and tilted her head in the other. Seriously? That was her impression. The people around were waiting in anticipation for her answer, but she checked again and again. Miss Stentor. Falk Firebeard urged her to talk. Well, here is the thing. There are magic traces on the helm, but they are very thin. Meaning? It means that this helm, it is really ancient. Its enchantment has long since faded. There is no magic on it whatsoever. A strange silence took over the place. It was understandable. John's actions up until now were really suspicious. He refused to answer Ericr's questions about putting a spell on the mind of Jarl Career, and he was about to go wild when Ericr's attendant stepped up to check the helm. That's impossible. One of the people around were fully disbelieving what Sybil said. Sybil turned her head towards that poor fool and her glare was enough to make him shiver. If it is not the helm, then it is something else. It has to be. Ericr's face was red with anger as he said so. All eyes landed on John once again, who simply didn't show any sort of emotion. In the inside, however, he was smiling widely. I am the one who inherited Ozidal's genius. Do you simply think you can read an enchantment I made if I want to hide it? Reminder: Ozidal's genius is the power bestowed on John when he equips 4 items of Ozidal's set. It boosts his knowledge of enchanting. John has indeed disguised the traces of the enchantment he erased from the helm to make it look like an old enchantment that wasn't renewed or charged in ages. Not even Nurina could tell the difference. Still, the matter wasn't over. The helm was simply the first suspected method. I apologize, my Jarl, but can I check you directly? No touching or anything, just a little divination spell. Sybil turned to Career. She wasn't sure she would find anything now. Career glanced at the people around him with anger. This is a stark humiliation. Your Grace, I will comply with your will, but after this is over, Winterhold has a long list of complaints. Jarl Career said. You have my word, Jarl Career. King Torg replied. My Jarl, if you have any enchanted item on you, it may interfere with my test. Sybil said. I don't. Carry on. Sybil nodded and evoked a spell. John kept observing with his eyes, and could tell that the spell is a very advanced one. Sybil seemed to be well versed in divination and detection spells. Her spell doesn't even touch Career, but it was some sort of a way to heighten her magic detection ability while observing any magic signal on Career. No signal. Jarl Career is in perfect health mentally and physically. There is no magical effect on him at all. The temperature in the room dropped down a few degrees. This meant a lot for this meeting. Right now Erica was receiving all the glares. Sybil still didn't stop and turned to John. Thane John. If you excuse me. If you have any enchanted item on you. Sigh. Fine. John sighed and tapped with his feet on the ground. His strange action had a stranger response. From God knows where, a little girl in a black dress and a big black hat appeared. She was way too cute for anyone to handle, and she stood next to John. Help me out. John took off his bracers, Haven ring, and his cloak. Hell, he even took off an amulet of Talos in front of everyone just like that. He gave all the stuff to Nefertiti. The small girl carried all the John-sized stuff between her small arms and was almost buried in them. She turned around to a small table and put all that on it. Creak bang. The table simply broke. Nefertiti jumped from the fright and looked at the people around with scared expressions. Sorry. Just put them away, John said. She still had the Haven cube in her hand. Just like John, she clapped once and all his stuff disappeared in the cube. It was way too weird of a situation, and as if they all forgot about John, all the people looked at Nefertiti with blank expressions. A small child, appearing out of nowhere, carrying something so heavy a weight. Why was it that heavy? Still, she carried it easily and did the same thing as John to make these things disappear. Just what is going on? Nefertiti was normally not shy, but too many strange people around caused her to just stay beside John like a scared little kid. Can we get done with it? John said. Sybil acted as if she couldn't hear John and kept staring at Nefertiti. Something weird made all her skin crawl when the strange girl appeared. She couldn't even see her coming. One must know that Sybil's most important role was to identify threats around Solitude and tell who is coming and who is going, but that was completely out of her sight. Not just that, Nefertiti was powerful, very powerful to just ignore, and all she could feel that she would lose sight of that kid once her eye gets away from her. Miss Stentor. Only Fox's voice was annoying enough for Sybil to wake up from her daze. Oh, right, sorry. Sybil couldn't be in a daze more than that and looked at John. I am starting. She did the same thing on John and the result was the same as Jarl career at first, but the more she tried to look into John's energy, the deeper the abyss was. At first, she could scry John's soul easily, but to check if there is an anomaly in it, she had to go further. Still, the further she got, the wider it becomes. What is that? Sybil was not a human but rather a vampire. She can be counted as an undead, and she has already seen a lot in her life, but it was way too much. What kind of a human was that? Can that be still called a human? Undead can shed no sweat, but the shivers she had were all real. She was in front of a human whose body can be said as at the apex state among humanity. His soul was too large for his body. It is impossible to trap such a soul in a black soul gem, even if the King of Worms and the Wolf Queen themselves tried. John noticed what Sybil was doing and finally his expressions changed. He grinned widely and simply blocked the connection that Sybil established with him. No, wait. Sybil freaked out once the mystic connection was severed. You have already achieved your purpose. More than that is too much, John replied. Sybil. King Torrig was already waiting for the results on the edge of his chair. Sybil turned around and nodded. Thane John, he is a human, no vampirism detected, so it means he cannot use hypnosis with his eyes. He is also very healthy mentally and physically, if I am not mistaken. He is also blessed by multiple divines. Just what answer can be more satisfying to John? He let Sybil see what he wanted to see with ease. A smile was forming on his face as he simply looked around. Gods, he is blessed. Wait, will we get cursed for not standing for him? By the 8, what have we done? Some of the people who were affected by John's fit of anger a while ago were already in a hysteria once again. Only glares from the higher-ups quietened them down. I conclude that there is no mind control whatsoever between Thane John and Jarl Career, and the helm of Winterhold is clean," Sybil said, and walked behind the throne hurriedly. She needed some time to think of what she experienced. This was said by none other than Solitude's court mage. John and Career were in trouble, no more, rather, Solitude and the Alliance were in trouble. Now Winterhold is offended and John is smiling viciously. Only Torrig and Fox saw that smile on his face once just a few hours ago. It was when John and Torrig played a game of Gwent. It was the same tactic all along. John would fool his opponent with simplicity and a few mind games. In the Gwent, he played with the minimum amount of cards, not to limit himself but limit the chances of having useless cards, and he made a strong front the first round to force his opponent to back down, only to come stronger the second round. In court, John let Ericer take out all the garbage. He stood silently when Ericer accused him of mind-controlling Jarl Career, and acted violently when Ericer's aide was about to check. This was not done whimsically. It was all for the purpose of making himself look guilty and luring Solitude to press further into the matter. Once all was done and John was viewed innocent, he can now have every right to slap back. John misled the royal court of Skyrim and led them by the nose to this point. The sense of crisis was already useless. Ericer couldn't believe any of that. The reports he got were all verified 100%. John Dare and his black pigeons can never interfere with the information network. He brought his information from Anne for the first time. It was all wrong. The helm was not cursed. Career was not enthralled. He was a fool, a way too fool. He should have known that John would never enter the Blue Palace with Jarl Career being mind-controlled. But how? There was no possible answer to such a thing anymore. Still, someone answered. "Your Grace." Jarl Career stepped forward and stood in front of John. "I was accused of being enthralled and Thane John was slandered way too much because of that. I know I had a complicated past with the mages, but as life goes, changes happen. Change is sacred, change is inevitable. 2 years ago, my hold and I were under the control of Pirate. I couldn't voice any complaints as everything I was responsible for was taken a hostage, and that includes many good locals. I am sure the other holds are already aware of what kind of predicament Winterhold was in, but still, no one cared. No one cared for over 80 years. We couldn't do anything and the College of Winterhold shut its door for their own reasons. Yes, things would have changed if the college decided to stick around and save Winterhold, but triggering any animosity with the locals was always too much of a risk. I was one of those angry locals too. As people fled Winterhold year after year, we couldn't come back ever again. We were always short on everything. I know I blame the college, and I still blame them for not trying, but I realized where I was mistaken, where we were all mistaken. The problem is not magic or mages, it was always us, people. We look down on each other, rob each other, undermine one another, oblivion. We are about to go into a bloody civil war. For what? And to what purpose? For 80 years, Winterhold waited for John Dare. Thane John said that we are not in the Age of Heroes anymore, and Jarl Ulfric is the only relic of the Age of Heroes. He is right, Ulfric is an old relic, but he is also wrong. The Age of Heroes is not over, as John Dare is also a hero, the hero of Winterhold, and I dare you to say a word about that, I'll slap you all. This man is a Nord. The Nordest Nord you can ever see. He's a clever man, he's a tongue, he's a warrior. And you all questioned him and slandered him. He knew it will happen and told me beforehand. Thank the Nine, I already knew this will happen, or else. The east of Skyrim never cared for the west, and the west was always foolhardy and Nordic. Don't get me wrong, this is not racism, this is nature. I was once a man who was blinded by anger and hate, but John Dare came to me and said, I will change everything, Winterhold will be great again. Let's rebuild the hold of Iskramor, the town of Shaladar, the city of the first men. He had a plan to free Winterhold and stepped up to it when no one else did for 80 years. He told me it is a wager that won't cost me a septim, and look where it got us. Now, you all want to say that I was enthralled or Thane John is corrupt. Well, you got my full attention. Those who accuse the hero of Winterhold of anything bad are to be judged. Thane John, they are yours. Jarl Career returned to his seat after a heated speech. For the very first time in a long while through history, the old capital of Winterhold is demanding an explanation of the new capital of Solitude. John stepped forward and looked at King Torrig and Erikr. Your Grace, Winterhold submits an official complaint against Thane Erikr. I, the Thane of Winterhold, accuse Erikr the Thane of Hafengar with the attempt of defamation, false accusation in a public court, commencing unauthorized searches outside his area of jurisdiction, public shaming and slandering, the attempt of framing innocent people with the crime of treason. What else? Oh yes, disregarding the ethics of noble standards in the royal court in front of an imperial envoys, causing discord between many business partners, as well as more than 50 other accusations. All will be issued and presented to the court. John, the lawyer, was going berserk with all the crimes that came to his mind. The scribe of the assembly was already at a loss of what to record and what not to record. Thane John, this is enough. Falk Firebeard stood forward. Please file your complaints and we will see to them. Regarding today events, the internal affairs of the Blue Palace will handle it. Good. I expect answers and fair compensation. John didn't back down the slightest in front of the court of Solitude. The tension was clear. Solitude won't insult John Dare and expect it to go away. They have to pay. Falk looked at Torrig and the latter was still evaluating the situation. Don't take it too far, John Dare. Sadly, Torrig's words came too late and the one who spoke was the one who shouldn't speak, Erikr. Too far? You took it too far. Why don't I take it at least as far as you did? You are going down and going down hard. Why don't you simply admit your wrongdoing and maybe you will be granted the benefit of admitting them? John returned the same words Erikr said for him. You are pushing your luck. Erikr was already boiling with anger. It is a good luck that one of mine, I can push it all the way to oblivion and come back alive. Did it a few times if you are curious. Sadly, you are the one who thought that you can kill me by just a few accusations that you couldn't even build a case on. How disappointing. John turned around to his seat. Kill you? Erikr questioned with a funny face. Kid, I wasn't even trying. John halted his steps. Everyone looked at Erikr, whose expressions were not good. He was looking at John with vicious eyes. If I wanted to kill you, I should shame you first, destroy your reputation, and make no one mourn your death. Sadly, you managed to trick the court somehow and got away with it. Now you are just dying. You don't know it yet, but your fate was already set in stone. Erikr's words were not coming from the usual him. The people of the court could tell that the twist in Erikr's face was common to them, but there was always a certain high elf who comes and stops Erikr from doing something he will regret. Sadly, that high elf was shouted away by John and Erikr has no leash. John's eyes narrowed and walked back to Erikr. Do it, take your best shot. Tell whoever you brought to take it. I will give you the first move. John said with a mocking smile. Erikr was unfazed. I am afraid a brute like you don't understand how things go around here. We don't kill you with our knives. We make you walk into your own death, fully aware. Yeah, good luck with that. John no longer bothered. Erikr giggled and spoke to John. You think you are safe. You think your family is safe. Well, you are right. You built Winterhold so no one can hurt your people. Well done. But you are already drowning in your own success. Surely you won't see that one coming. John didn't understand what Erikr fully, but he was sure that Erikr has done something and it went without him noticing. Still, John couldn't point at anything he missed. His plans were perfect, yet Erikr seemed very sure. Yes, that's the face I wanted to see, ha 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 ha. Erikr was drunk in a victory only he knew about. Erikr, Cut it out. Fox seemed annoyed. What have you done, Ericer? Torrig asked. Still, Ericer was looking at John, not wanting to miss the questioning expressions he captured. Speak, slime. John too was at the end of his patience. Why don't you wait? You will know soon enough. We all will. Ericer! Thane Bryling shouted at Ericer to wake him from his state of madness. Ericer looked at her with a sneer and looked at John again. Fine, I will give you a hint. Let's say, Orsinium doesn't invite Nords that often. None could understand what Ericer meant, but John's eyes blinked a few times in realization. Viarmo and Julliner could guess what Ericer meant and shot up from their seat. Those who saw John's face already realized that the crisis is unavoidable. In the next second, hurried footsteps could be heard coming from outside the throne room. It was a palace guard running as fast as he could with a letter. A calling from the Reach. A calling from the Reach. The guard ran in, ignoring everyone, and gave the letter to Falk. The atmosphere was too unstable to withstand another surprise, but Jarligmund and his aides were also stood up. Falk read the letter and his expressions crumbled. Your Grace, Jarligmund, there is a situation in the Reach. The clans around Markarth and the Forsworn all started fighting. Only a few could guess that the two situations regarding Markarth and Ericer are connected. Ericer himself was taken aback for a second, but none could foresee what happened next. Vik Mathar. Defeat, fall, obey. John shouted the tyranny shout. All who heard the shout fell on their knees. Chapter 325 have begun. Just a reminder. It is getting messy, not this chapter. Be a man or a woman and hold on. Extra chapter. Every plus $10 patron or PayPal. Extra chapter. 5,000 vote. Extra chapter. 8,000 vote. Vik Mathar. Defeat, fall, obey. Words of absolute dominance. Words said by someone who is dominant and sadistic. Comprehending those words was the easiest John could ever do. This was an original shout that John made. A shout that breaks the hearts of men by Vik defeat, bends the knees of men by Ma fall, and pressure the heads of men by Thar obey. A shout meant for a tyrant. The throne room of the Blue Palace witnessed the most shocking scene that happened in ages. All were kneeling for one man, and those who couldn't resist at all were kowtowing. Still, John was mindful. He spared some from the effect of the shout by his will. Those were Torrig, the Jarl, the ambassador and his people. They were simply standing but on the brink of falling down as well. Torrig looked around himself and saw the tens of people in his throne room all kneeling to John. Ericer was on his knees and head in front of John's foot, and John himself enveloped in his demonic tyrannical aura. Just what on Nirn did happen for John to go this wild? The suppression was strong, but it seemed that John started to focus his anger on Ericer. People started to feel lighter and raise their heads, but that's as far as they could do. Their curiosity made them look up, but their instincts kept them kneeling. John stretched his hand towards Ericer and pulled his head up by the hair. Worm, speak. John's voice was cold. It carried no hint of any emotions but deep anger. His soul-crushing stare dug deep in Ericer, who continued to grit his teeth and endure. I'll break you, Worm. I'll show you suffer that no mortal can withstand. Want to live? Talk. Even on the edge of death, Ericer kept a stubborn head and his mouth was shut. Thane John, please, tell us what happened? Torrig mustered enough will to speak. It is Chief Wulfur, Thane John's brother. He was supposed to go through the Reach to Orsinium. Ericer must have done something. Jarl Career, who wasn't affected by the shout that much, replied. Damn it. Thane John, this is no place for violence. Whatever happened, let us interrogate Thane Ericer and send an imperial attachment to the Reach. No need for violence. Count Pavo, who was faring the best under John's pressure, decided to put the matter on hold. Damn those Nords. They lose the aim of things and put everything on the line. How did a beast like that show up in Skyrim? He thought. Clearly, Ericer was so absorbed in finishing John's business empire to the point that he ignored John's personal power. John wasn't listening to anyone and threw John across the room to the High King. "Make him speak, Your Grace," he said. "What, Your Grace?" Torg wanted to shout. There was no grace left at all in this hall. "Damn you, Ericer! Just how low did you fall?" Falk Firebeard looked at Ericer and cursed. Ericer finally felt the pressure getting lighter as soon as he got away from John. He barely mustered enough power in his arm and looked up to Torg. "Ericer, what have you done in the Reach?" Torg asked. "Your Grace, I only hired the Forsworn." "You imbecile!" Torg couldn't help but cuss. "Who are the Forsworn? They are the worst patch of mortals one can cross-path with other than a Thalmor Justiciar team. Formerly known as the Madmen of the Reach, or simply the Reachmen. A group of Daedra worshippers that inhabited the Reach Hold even before the days of Tiber Septim. They invaded Markarth not too long ago, and were driven out by Ulfric Stormcloak. Now those same Forsworn were hired by the King's Thane to put down a rival. Still, there was one question left. "Did you fake Wulfr's invitation to Orsinium?" John asked. Ericer didn't answer and simply smiled. And so it was like that. Wulfr was baited to get out of Winterhold too with some trick. John remembered that there were a few orcs who came to witness Wulfr's smithing before inviting him to Orsinium, but that was surely a play. Once Wulfr took the road to Orsinium through the Reach Hold, Ericer hired the Forsworn to attack Wulfr, and it was all a bait to send John after Wulfr, where another bait will be waiting for him. That's how the people understood it. Ericer wasn't feeling scared the slightest. He was sure that John won't kill him as they were in Hafingar, and it was the truth. Killing Ericer in Hafingar in front of the High King is a declaration of war, but other than that, John is free to do whatever he wants with Ericer, who was very direct with his intentions of killing John. John proceeded toward Ericer, who was thrown at the feet of Torg. His intent to hurt Ericer was clear, and he was going to use every means to draw out information from Ericer. He took the first step, and before he takes the second, someone blocked his way. That's enough. Sybil Stentor had to step up in front of John. Going wild in the Blue Palace and not regarding the High King was like slapping Torg on both cheeks. Still, it was surprising that Sybil was the first to free herself from John's suppression. "Move," John ordered. I said, "That's enough." Sybil stood fully in the way of John, not caring about consequences no more. A lot was on stake here. She was prepared to fight John, and her claws elongated under her sleeves. John could tell so, but he didn't care to and simply walked past her. Just as Sybil attempted to stop him, the small girl in black dress and hat stood for her. Both Nefertiti and Sybil were monsters among monsters. A vampire and a werbeast, the legendary counterparts. Sybil tried to brush of Nefertiti, but the latter was even more overbearing than John. She transformed into her beast form in an instant and stood face to face with Sybil. The situation was getting way out of control. The appearance of the large cat that emitted enough power to lock Sybil Stentor in her place was adding more chaos to the chaos. Those who saw the cat remembered the tales they heard about Winterhold, that there was a large black cat-like beast has befriended John Dare. Now that beast was that young girl. Only a few had a better guess. "Is that a Firemane familiar?" Bryling asked. The Firemane familiars are the beasts that the Firemans associate their clan with, such as the direwolves, the scar grizzly bears, the snow hawks, etc. It was the only explanation, even though it didn't answer anything. Not daring to ignore John, who was already in front of Ericer, the people shifted their gaze from Nefertiti and Sybil Deadlock to John and Ericer. "Trinvac, speak, worm. I will either know what I want with swiftness or with pain," John said. "Oblivion swallows you." Ericer cussed at John. "Is that so? Fine, sing for me." Faz ausag. Pain, suffer, burn. A second shout was unleashed by John. The words were ever so domineering as the first shout, but the effect targeted only Ericer. Everyone looked at Ericer, who was complete as he is. He wasn't shredded in pieces or kowtowing to the ground. He was just still. Only a second later did the people realize the effect of the words. His eyes widened, his body quivered, and his soul shook. He was hit by another Thursdayum created by John, the agony shout. Blood flowed from Ericer's eyes as if tears, then a shriek followed. Imagine if someone was receiving all sorts of pain, not from the perspective of a human but of a dragon. To top that, the Thursdayum was designed to cause agony and no kill that easily. Ericer started rolling on the ground and bleeding like a dying hog. No person ever tried to approach this hellish scene and backed away once Ericer got nearer. John was simply following him and looking down on him. Look at you, you squirm on the ground like a worm, just like I said. If you want this to end, then tell me everything. A simple deal. A fair exchange. If my brother lives out of this, I won't come for your life. I am a man of my word. Tinvok. Speak. John stepped on one of Ericer's legs to stop him from squirming away. Ericer was struggling for his life under the unending pain, he has put it. A pain that came from laterally every piece of his body. I'll talk. I'll talk. Stop. Make it stop. It burns. John didn't want to waste any more time and stopped the torture he inflicted on Ericer. What Ericer said afterward confirmed all the guesses of the people. Even the message that Falk Firebeard had in his hand had some details that confirmed what Ericer said. This time, not only Winterhold but also Markarth was also very offended. To simply stir trouble in the Reach hold around Markarth was already insulting enough, and Jarl Igmud was foaming from anger. Your Grace, the crimes of Jarl career transcends beyond the Skyrim. The Reachmen problem was always something that worries the Empire, and Thane Ericer is also a partner to the East Empire Company. With Thane John's accusations, his crimes will be judged not only in front of Solitude but in front of the whole Skyrim and an imperial court. Count Pavo was the first to throw Ericer under the mammoth. High King Torrig only nodded and held his head. John was already done and didn't bother with anything else. He simply cast a curse on Ericer and turned around. We are leaving, he said, and the whole envoy of Winterhold moved. Even Jarl Career was not pleased with the situation and walked beside John. Jarl Career, Thane John. Someone called for them. Surprisingly, that was King Torrig. Solitude is at fault here. Let us handle this situation. Your presence is essential for both the assembly and the case you're filing against Ericer. If you leave right now, things will become complicated. You can search the Reach on your own, let alone reach it now. John paused and turned around. It is my brother. You are walking into a trap, Torrig shouted at John. And so be it, John said, and left the throne room with those words. Outside the Blue Palace, the people of Winterhold stood together. Joe, take the ship and head back to Winterhold. I am coming. Nefertiti is coming. I need you there to deliver the situation to the Alina, Nurina, and the firemen's. Jolinar dejectedly nodded. Jarl Career, my best security team will escort you back to Winterhold safe and sound. I doubt Ericer's associates will stop after this. I am going after Wulfur. Godspeed. John and Nefertiti separated from the group and walked into the city of Solitude. John already had a plan in mind. He walked towards a building he visited once before in Solitude back when he wasn't even a student at the college. There were the means he needed to reach Markarth as soon as possible. As he walked through a corridor, out of nowhere, someone held his hand tightly. Hey, let go! John was in a sour mood and was about to lash at whoever that was, only to look at her and freeze in his place. It was the dark elf shrine priestess of Azura, Arania Ionith. Lady Azura greets you, John Hild. Your labors have begun. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmizi. Pat Rayon, remove the dash. Pat Rayon, com/Eldokmizi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 326, The Labor. This bonus chapter comes by Koi Hee Ching, and Happy Ramadan. Also, a big thanks to @Omnisiac10. Lady Azura greets you, John Hild. Your labors have begun. What? John's head was short on circuit. What on earth did that crazy woman just say? Your labors have begun, Arania Ionith said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The two of them were standing in the middle of the street while the passers-by were walking past them. John still was having a blank second of his own to put his thoughts together. How? No, wait. I am busy. Tell your goddess to wait. My brother, he is in trouble. John said and turned away, leaving the dark elf priestess in the middle of the street, but the next words she spoke made him halt his steps. And how are you planning to find him? In less than a day your brother would be dead. You may reach the reach in less than a day judging by your power, but the reach is too wide and very treacherous. Haven't you thought why your enemies chose that place, in particular, to send you to your own death? Arania said. John looked at her right in the eye. I see your goddess is keeping tabs on the situation from above. Fine, but I can't do the labor for your goddess and rescue my brother at the same time. Arania nodded. Lady Azura is merciful, young man. Up until now, she has shown nothing but mercy towards you, unlike her usual. You are in luck, but just like children, you have to be taught a lesson. Lady Azura would curse anyone who harms her brightest star. You are going to be sent on a few labors. Rejoice. Humph. John could only snort with dissatisfaction. Even if his nickname was Dare, there was not much he can do against an almighty Daedric prince like Azura. So, your goddess is going to help me find my brother in exchange for the labor? John asked. Arania's smile grew even wider. Even better, young John Hild. Your labor is about saving your brother. John's expressions turned blank. He no longer could understand what Azura was doing here. You know what a labor is, don't you? You helped a laborer once, so you should know. John nodded. How could he forget Isha and what she told him about the labors? Labors are like sports for the Daedric princes. They would sponsor certain mortals they favor for the sake of achieving some tasks in the mortal world that may affect either the near future or the far future. The Daedric lords would put their bets on these mortals by granting them artifacts and blessings. The laborers are normally chosen from the ranks of the unfortunate and the ones who offended the Daedra somehow. Still, more than one Daedric prince can wager on the same laborer, but the laborer would still follow the wish of their sponsor lord. This wasn't all. In regards to the laborer, there was nothing safe. Each labor would always have some ending set in stone, and the laborer is forced on either lose, or suffer, or be lucky. Failing a labor wouldn't change anything. It was also another ending, and the rest of the labors would carry on. The rules were cruel but fair. Still, to force the laborers on the labors, the Daedra would employ any mean necessary. Isha's young brother was infected with some sort of disease. Not by the Daedra, but they have its cure, and by laboring, only can Isha get that cure. John has a lot to lose. He has a big family, many friends, and a hold. As he thought about it, his expressions turned into an angry frown. Why would you make that face, young John Hild? Lady Azura favors you for sheltering her people under her shrine. Among the labors I have seen, you should be the luckiest. I mean, you have already finished a labor and got away lucky. Arania said. What did you say? I have already finished labor? Yes, with the young spear maiden of bitter mercy. Wasn't that Isha's labor? And you labored together. Wasn't your friend's future and mine at stake back then? You survived the mad god. How can that not be a labor? Lady Azura is fair and just, young John Hild. So it was like that? John was taken aback, but he was not that upset. Still, quit calling me young John Hild in public. Does Azura even my true name? Damn it, just tell me what Azura wants from me, he said. Normally, a laborer shouldn't go on their labor without a weapon. Not just any weapon, but a weapon of a Daedric origins. I have 3 of those. Carry on. Excuse me? Arania was finally taken aback for the first time. I have 3 Daedric artifacts: Skull of Corruption, Wabajak, and Maroon's Razor. Would any of them work? John asked with impatience. You have 3. Yeah, should your goddess at least know that? Lady Azura knows all, I just wasn't informed. Still, they won't work. Limiting your option to a weapon you should wield is part of the trials, and as long as Lady Azura gave me no order to direct you towards a weapon, then you are free to use any Daedric artifact for now during the labors. Depending on your actions, any Daedric lord may decide to be a patron and grant you a proper weapon. As your prophet, I will inform you when the time comes. Prophet? That's me. I will find you once you are done with this labor. John Hild, here is your labor as Lady Azura directs me. You must go to a village surrounded by danger through its old name survived through the years. There, brothers unite and brothers separate. That's it? Azura's signs are always cryptic. I am not sure where you should go, but that's all the clues you have, better than turning every stone in the reach, right? John made an annoyed face, but he nodded in the end. So what should I expect? He asked. I don't know. If my foresight is accurate, then you are facing a horde of enemies with unrivaled animosity to anything that can be described as Nord, and you have to rescue what is likely a hostage. John was annoyed, but he just sighed and replied, I'll do as Azura wishes. John turned around and left the woman in blue robes behind. Arania merely shook her head and followed Azura's direction to the next location where she should meet John. In a building in solitude, John and another man were speaking to each other with anger. I said I am a teacher at the college and I need it. No means no. You are simply a scholar in your first year of service. Even the Archmage doesn't use that thing you are asking for this often. I don't care. I am in a hurry, dimwit. No can do, Scholar John. The mage in charge of the Solitude's college residence didn't allow John to use the emergency teleportation array. These arrays are secret exclusive only to the senior members of the college and can't be used by just anyone. They also link all the major cities with the college. The cost to use is 10 grand soul gem. Not any mage would afford the price, but John had already forked out 20 of them. I am telling you, it's no use. I can't allow you to use them, so go away, I am sorry. The mage said. Yeah man. I am sorry too. John sneakily cast paralysis on the man and bypassed him. After that, it didn't take him a minute to figure out the place of the secret teleportation array and how does it work. Hang in there, Wolf. 20th of Sun's Dusk, 4E197, 1 day earlier to the assembly. Wolfer and his apprentices bypassed Fort Sunguard that acts as a checkpoint between the Reach Hold and Whiterun Hold. Sure enough, the fort was occupied with Hold guards and a patch of legionaries. Just like John foresaw, a war will start. Wolfer showed concern for the state of Skyrim, but he had no head for complicated politics. Different than John, Wolfer was a truly 18-years-old young man whose interests were all regarding his hobby and craft as well as the things that his brother designs. A man of a simple character like Wolfer had grown to a potential even John couldn't foresee. Wolfer was always the picky weapon master and smith, whose mind can't be made to use one weapon. He simply can use them all, and that was his dilemma. Rather than weapons and his brother and all the usual Wolfer stuff, Wolfer was the leader of a large patch of the company's mercenaries. His group, which was the heavy infantry, is the largest group, and he controls Team 1 with the duty of managing the Dare arsenal. Simply, Wolfer was John's most trusted person and was the only person who can keep up with John's weird impulses and even predict them. If John was absent and someone asked what would John do if he was here, Wolfer was the man to answer such a question. Anyway, Wolfer's party traveled on Atronach horses and bears, which made the team look a bit magical from afar. The captain of Fort Sungard also harassed them for such a thing, but the badge of the Dare Dragon Company was enough to open any closed road. As soon as the team entered the Reach Hold, they witnessed it nature that felt different than the rest of Skyrim. The Reach was a very rocky area and its flora and fauna were special. The Reach was a mix between the rocky High Rock, the green Cyrodiil and the desolate Skyrim. Wolfer's team didn't have much trouble during the journey from the Fort Sungard half the way to the first settlement on the way, Old Hroldan. As they were on the road between the two stops, the Reach suddenly bore its fangs. "Mountain lions!" one of Wolfer apprentices shouted. It was indeed those pesky, unfriendly cougars that inhabit the South Mountains. Maybe John would have been able to deal with them, as they are felines, but John was not here and these beasts were already at full hostility. "Form a circle and kill them." Wolfer gave the order and his team responded rather well. Their Atronach mounts were all powerful enough to scare wild beasts and kill them, but the situation was off. Those mountain lions were hungry and seemed desperate to hunt. "Let's not take rest. Hurry to Old Hroldan." It was the right choice to do, but the situation turned weirder and weirder. All sorts of beasts attacked the team. It started with cougars, wolves, then a wild Spriggan appeared and led some animals to attack the team. Still, none of that survived Wolfer's hammer in the end. What was unfortunate was the sight of other travelers getting killed. There were people other than Wolfer and his team on the road, and some of them has met some sad endings. Just as things quietened down for a while, a man appeared sitting on a large rock on the side of the road. The man was short and seemed a bit of savage. His hair was shaved from the sides and tied on the top with a beard. He looked young though, maybe 25 or something. "Hey!" he called for Wolfer and his men. One of the apprentices of Wolfer came closer to him and whispered, "Careful, chief. That man seems to be a Reach man, a forsworn." Wolfer looked back at the man who called them and replied, "What do you want, friend? Let me ask you, did your people survive those animals that attack people?" The man asked. "More or less. More or less. I see. A powerful group then, even the things you are riding look magical." The man started evaluating. "State your business or don't bother us," Wolfer said loudly. "HM? No need, my name is Alaric. I suppose that one of you is called, a weird Nord name. What is it again?" "Walfar Wolfer." Wolfer narrowed his eyes. It seemed that his arrival at the Reach was expected. "Well, I assume that's you from the description." The man called Alaric figured out who is Wolfer on his own. Wolfer put his hand on his weapon. Alaric smiled as he made sure his guess was correct. "Capture him, kill the rest. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon, com/Eldokmizi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 327 Alaric. Extra Chapter. Every plus $10 Patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter. 5,000 vote. Extra Chapter. 8,000 vote. 20th of Sun Dusk, November, 4E197. 9 Nords against 100 Forsworn, the odds are disastrous. From the mountains surrounding the road, a lot of figures appeared. They were all wearing furs and bones like savages, yet it all helped them to be completely camouflaged. They held on their bows and crude weapons. "To arms!" Yet Wolfer shouted valiantly and all his people took out some heavy shield. "Shoot them!" Alaric, the forsworn leader whose face was covered with red paint, shouted as he took out a bow and shot at Wulfur. The latter didn't even need a shield to deflect the arrow away with the back of his hand. Alaric seemed to have underestimated Wulfur and put down the bow. There wasn't much to do with a regular weapon like that against someone with Wulfur's level. Alaric took out a spear and gave another command. Pin them down. Don't let these magical creature break on a run. Contrary to other mounts, the Atronach mounts had endless stamina and could break from 0 to top speed in an instant. Alaric's worry about the Nords using their mounts to charge was not baseless, but his estimation was wrong. The Atronachs may look like horses, but they were basically different beings. Let's make it out of here. We need to reach Old Hroldan, one of Wulfur's said, and Wulfur agreed. Charge! They directed their mounts and decided to escape the hail of arrows with speed while covering themselves with their shield. Not so fast. Alaric realized that there was no stopping those Nords, so he decided to interfere in a melee fight. He ran towards Wulfur with his spear and leaped really high. Even Wulfur was taken aback by the high leap. Blood Eagle! Once Alaric jumped that high, the forsworn all cheered for him, calling him Eagle. His leap really reassembled a flying eagle. Alaric held his spear with his 2 hands and descended on Wulfur. The forsworn knew about their brave leader's famous leap and how many gigantic Nords like Wulfur died under it. They were already preparing to celebrate victory in their mind. However, the scene they saw next felt like they were showered with cold water all of a sudden. Wulfur raised his shield facing Alaric and bashed at the right time. The bash sent Alaric even higher than his own leap with a broken nose. Wulfur was simply too domineering even with a fork at hand. Too bad he didn't have one. Alaric landed with a bloody nose like a tossed stone, and Wulfur rallied his men to jump away. The forsworn who managed to sober up after the unprecedented event did their best to shoot Wulfur and his men with arrows, only to get blocked by their large shield. Forsworn warriors from Alaric's clan ran to him and helped him stand. He staggered for a bit and held his nose. Arg! Damn it! What was that, man? He cussed right away. Alaric, the Nord is getting away, one man said. Alaric was still bothered by his nose and clicked his tongue. TSK. I know, they will have to go through my brother first. So Grosh is back there. Alaric didn't bother, held his spear once again, only to find it snap. Damn it! That Nord is truly strong. I need a better weapon. Something bloody enough to kill that man. He said and chased after Wulfur. Not far ahead, a situation occurred. Something as if originated in hell blocked the way of Wulfur and his men. What on Nern is that? Even Wulfur was shocked. In front of him was a giant, maybe a bit smaller and look more like a human. No, it doesn't look like a human, it is a deformed human with an unimaginable height. Wulfur never thought to see someone taller than the fireman's, but in front of him, there was such a freak. Over 3 meters tall, the deformed freak stood with a large club in its hand. Grosh! An angry shout echoed from the freak as it charged at Wulfur and his men in high speed. Dodge! Don't make contact! Wulfur shouted, and his group dispersed into a loose formation to break away from such monstrosity. The Atronach horses ran past the freak one by one, and it couldn't catch any, but the last man that almost passed the freak was flung away by the club. Ah! Frilg! Wulfur shouted to his assistant that was sent flying. He turned around and wanted to run for him, but the man has already hit the ground with a chest turned into meat paste. Grosh! Chief, be careful! Another assistant shouted. Wulfur felt a large shadow descended on him, and reflexively raised his shield. A mighty force smote down on his shield, and the storm Atronach horse under Wulfur crumbled. He could only crash on the ground with his feet and withstand the freak's attack with his 2 hands supporting the shield. Not given any other chance, another hit landed on Wulfur's shield. Grosh! Grosh! Wulfur withstood more smites with the club of the freak until his arms felt numb. The freak kept screaming while hitting Wulfur's shield, as if he was frustrated for not being able to smash a wall. Grush! The last hit from the freak shattered Wulfur's shield, but he still withstood it with his, level 7, iron bone, strength. Not only Wulfur's assistants witness Wulfur's admirable strength. Alaric and his people have already caught up and saw something they didn't want to believe right away. Grosh! Don't hit him from above. Kick him! Alaric shouted at the freak. Grosh looked between Alaric and Wulfur, realizing what he should have done from the start rather than frustrating itself. Grosh simply kicked Wulfur. To Wulfur, attacks from above were easily manageable by his strength and healing aura. Still, an attack by such a creature from the side sent Wulfur flying like a loosened arrow. His body was simply too numb from dodge the kick after the thunderous strikes that broke his shield open. Damn it! Help the chief! The assistants hurried to where Wulfur landed, and wanted to take him, but Alaric was faster as he started shooting arrows at them with his men. Grosh, finish that man! With a word from Alaric, the demented freak ran towards Wulfur with heavy thuds as if he was an actual giant. Yet out of nowhere something weird occurred. Fuss aro da! The 3 meters tall freak was sent away in the air just like that. Boss! One of the assistants looked around looking for John, the only one who can shout in their minds, but his guess was incorrect. Wulfur was the one who shouted. He managed to stand up and shout before it was too late and hurriedly retreated to his men. Let's get out of here. Fast. Covered by shields, Wulfur managed to summon another storm Atronak horse, and his team broke into a run towards Old Hroldan. The Forsworn were shocked by the unpredicted chain of events, but their shock was accompanied with anger. Alaric realized what happened faster than anyone and ran towards Grosh to check on him. Grosh! Brother! Are you okay? Grosh! Grush! It's okay. It's all right, you did your best. Don't be sad. Alaric comforted Grosh, who was deeply depressed about what happened, and looked towards where the Wulfur escaped. His expressions were full of wrath, just like the rest of his clansmen. Alaric! That Nord! He shouted. Not all the Forsworn were angry. The young ones were angry, but the old ones were a bit fearful. The reason was pretty much understandable. They witnessed the Thursdayum once a long time ago before the Reachmen become the Forsworn. It was the very reason why they swore in the first place. The shout that destroyed everything back then, the shout that crushed the kingdom, the Alaric's grandfather, the shout that killed his father and brothers when the gates of Markarth crumbled down on them. The shout that Ulfric Stormcloak used to regain the Reach and put the Reachman king in chains. To the Forsworn, this was the day of the humiliation when the Nords killed every last Reachman in Markarth, and even the Nords that lived under the rule of Madanak once they retook it. Wulfur may have pushed away a disaster by the shout, but he evoked another one. Alaric! The matrons, they want us to bring that man alive? One of the men asked. Alaric's glare towards Wulfur's direction only stopped when the matrons were mentioned. The matron's word is our law. If we can't take that man down with 100, we will bring 1,000. Alaric said and turned to his men. That man, Wulfur, he won't be able to run to Markarth. His direction will be Old Hroldan to rest after Grosh hit him. I saw him weakened. He raised his bow up and called. Call all the clans. You call the Bloodravens, you call the Bone Crushers, and you call even those poisonous bastards from the Doomfang. I will travel to the deep caves and meet the matrons, ask them for aid. He then turned towards the mountains, but he remembered something and spoke once more. If they wouldn't comply, tell them that the Blood Eagle Alaric, their prince and the grandson of Madanak, will deal with them after he takes the head of that Nord. Alaric's last orders brought chaos not only to the Forsworn but to the whole Reach. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, Remove the dash. Patreon. com/eldokmizi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 328 Under Siege. Extra Chapter. Every plus $10 Patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter. 5,000 vote. Extra Chapter. 8,000 vote. 21 SD of Sun's Dusk, November, 4E197. Old Hrolden is an ancient village on a crossroads that serves both as a checkpoint and a traveler's inn. Right now, the small village was barricaded to the teeth. Last night, a band of 8 Nords arrived at the town inn with horrific news. A large group of Forsworn is coming from the east. The village's guards patrolled the town and sent a few messengers to Markarth for reinforcements, but they all returned some wounded and 2 dead. The Forsworn were blocking all exit. Wulfr, the leader of the Nord band, was tired and he rested in the inn for the night. A rumor went that he battled a gigantic freak and the situation escalated to this point. The town did not know that Wulfr was wanted by the name to the Forsworn and his apprentices kept their mouth shut. In Wulfr's room, he and his men were making a strategic meeting. Wulfr was wounded from his duel with Grosh, the gigantic freak. He was bandaged and in pain, but he was lucky that he left Winterhold with many potions on him. His wounds only needed some rest, but he lost his shield, which he never thought it would be smashed like that. Oblivion, why was there such a creature in the first place? He sat depressed while applying a healing spell on himself. Now that he became ready, he was preparing to make those Forsworn eat shit when they come. Chief, I never knew you could use the Thursday one of his men said. John is my brother, for goodness sake. If I didn't learn it after 14 years of following him, then I should be some sort of fool. Wulfr smiled as he said so. Chief, you can shout like the boss now, can you? Like John? Oblivion, do you think anyone in the world can shout like him? I can only shout once a day, so I'll make the best of it. Oh, I see. What is important now is to fortify the village. I am not sure how the folk will feel, but we can't drag this fight any longer. The Forsworn are almost 100 and they have that freak. I want all of you to rest well before they come. 2 of us shall accompany the guards available while the other rest. We need to be in our best condition for the battle. Wulfr made a fast plan. Right, Chief. About the village's guards. There are a few of them, but the men who are ready to fight raised the number to 30. Wulfr pondered a little. That's far from enough. I need to hold that large freak if he shows up, and that one who calls himself Alaric is not an easy opponent for you. These 2 will be my target. You 7 will have to drag the other Forsworn with him, and kill them slowly. Use the barricade and blockage tactics we trained on. Yes, Chief, the man said, but started thinking a little. What is it, Jaugvar? Chief, I am just worried. Those Forsworn seem to be waiting for us and knew you by name. Wulfr remained silent but nodded in the end. So, I was saying, is there a chance that we are being ambushed by someone who knew our traveling plan? Wulfr was thinking of that matter ever since he met Alaric. Someone wanted him, and to top it, the Forsworn were hired somehow. It was impossible for the Nords to hire the Forsworn, as the blood vengeance between the 2 races was always boiling hot. Still, John said that the Forsworn are being controlled once. He was sure that John may find a clue, but that was not the time for these ideas. They have to survive first. Don't worry about that for now. I don't think going to Orsinium matters now. We shouldn't even head to Markarth. Are we returning? Yes, this is the best course of action. We should escape when we put down enough of them and run to the north. There is a mining village right before Whiterunhold. We then will reach Rorikstead and from there to Whiterun. Rorikstead has better defenses and the Forsworn won't venture that far. After that, we will bring the company down on those fuckers and avenge Frilg. Thank you, Chief, the man said and left Wulfr to rest. Wulfr was still worried about another matter. He wanted to avenge the comrade that died but also wanted to return his men safe to their families, yet he had that bad feeling. He shook the bad ideas away and laid on the bed for some rest. Sun didn't even set before the Forsworn arrived. The number was massive. Not sure why, but they seemed to have fought with someone before they arrived at Old Hroldan. Wulfr stood atop of a watchtower and could see Alaric and Grosh. The terrain of the area was not suitable for an open battle anyway. The village was on a road surrounded by 2 mountains, and on a river flowing through the valley. Just why would they bring that number? Wulfr was vexed by the unforeseen situation. Out of his knowledge, Alaric has made a big mistake by mobilizing all those Forsworn, and that's not even the true number of the forces Alaric was intending to bring. When Alaric ordered the others' clans to come, his actions were noticed by the Nord clans outside the Reach, and they didn't know what was going on, so they mobilized their forces too. Some of those clans were the Nordic Black Bone clan, an enemy of the Firemane and clan that utilized necromancy while attacking the Firemane clan with the Bloodsails almost a year ago. They were defeated, but their ancestral home was far from the Firemans and Winterhold, so the Firemans didn't go after them. Still, the Black Bone clan moved with other Nordic clans to intercept whatever those Forsworn were doing. Away from Old Hroldan, there were multiple skirmishes taking place, but Alaric has rallied the best numbers he can utilize to face Wulfr. Torch that village. Force those Nords out. Alaric and the Forsworn started shooting fire arrows at Old Hroldan. Incoming! The Nords were fortifying the village to the best of their ability. The children and the old ones were hiding in some caves behind the village, and the men started to put down the fire while shooting arrows back at the Forsworn. This won't do much. The village can't hold them. Wulfr concluded. We need a tighter ground. Wulfr and his men started shooting arrows back at the Forsworn and killed a considerable number of them. Knowing that he was the target, Wulfr decided to abandon Old Hroldan, but was afraid that it would be used against him as a hostage. An hour passed and darkness descended. Light in the village only meant death. If a place was torched by a fire arrow and someone was spotted, then that person will be riddled with Forsworn arrows. The Forsworn tried to sneak in the cover of darkness into the village, but Wulfr and his men were prepared for such tactics and used the reverse psychology to empty the village from its defenders. With one last distraction, Wulfr and his men escaped the abandoned Old Hroldan towards the mountains in the north. The Forsworn were the best to navigate in the Reach, as they could utilize all the cave networks around the mountains to travel, and soon they found Wulfr and his band. One of Wulfr's men lost his life after being overrun by 3 beast-like Forsworn warriors. What made the matter worse was a group of Hagravens appearing with the Forsworn and acted as spellcasters to the horde. Wulfr and his men couldn't help but run to a mountain where they could secure a cave. With nothing but a wall to their back, the 7 Nords faced the Forsworn horde, valiantly fending off their grounds as much as they could while throwing large rocks and on any Forsworn that dared to climb the mountain. The Forsworn attempted to rely on their beast-like warriors to reach the Nords up the mountain, but Wulfr personally fought 2 of those warriors at the mouth of the cave and slew them. "Chief, what is that?" One of Wulfr's men noticed something strange on a body of those beast-like warriors. Wulfr checked it and saw a hole in the chest of that man right above the heart, and instead of the man's heart, there was a strange-looking artichoke-like seed. A briar heart. Wulfr recognized it right away. "What is that?" "Dark magic. John once ordered us to bring him one of those to study, and we went in a lot of trouble to bring it from Markarth. This man is some sort of undead that utilizes the evil force of the seed that took place in his heart and came back to life with it. It is the worst kind of dark magic in Skyrim. These people who have those seeds are called the Briarhearts." "Chief, more are coming." Wulfr nodded and took a dagger rather than anything else. He stood in front of his warriors and put his helm on. Once he looked down, he saw almost 7 Briarheart warriors coming up the rocky road. As the men started to carry rocks to throw at them, Wulfur stopped them. Save your energy. These things are nimble and don't feel pain. I'll deal with them. Just watch my back and don't let surround me. 7 Briarhearts against 7 Nords. The odds may look even from afar, but Wulfur's people were no match for those creatures. Once the Briarhearts got close enough, they screamed like beasts and jumped at the Nords. Utilizing the high ground for themselves, the Nords could keep the Briarhearts at check only by the long spears they could use. 6 defended while 1 attacked. Holding the dagger with his left, Wulfur faced the first Forsworn in close quarters. The Briarheart tried to wave its hatchet at Wulfur, but the latter was more cunning and kept injuring the tendons of the Briarheart with accuracy. Once his opponent's arm was worn down, Wulfur could get close and pluck the seed out of the exposed heart. The Briarheart would jump away and fight with its nails and teeth if its heart was targeted, but Wulfur was too large to care and brought down his opponent by plucking out their Briarhearts. Just like that, the Briarheart warrior fell like a stringless marionette. Alaric was watching from down the mountain and started to feel vexed. Why is he not shouting? I want him to shout. He was obsessed with Wulfur's shout. Having some knowledge that the Thursdayum has a long cooldown, Alaric wanted to eliminate Wulfur's shout before he goes up. Grosh. Grush. What? No. You are not going up unless he shouts. Grosh. You want to take the shout? Are you crazy? It almost killed you. Grosh, grosh. I said no. Alaric was calming his brother from taking any reckless act. It was the only thing he can't sacrifice at the moment. No matter how many Briarheart warriors were used to wear down Wulfur, his brother was not a pawn. The matrons can make more Briarhearts every day for all that he cares for. And also, the matrons brought that thing. No matter if it was Ulfric Stormcloak himself, that thing was made to mass murder. Still, out of his expectations, the Briarheart warriors fell from the mountain faster than he thought, all missing their hearts. One Hagraven went forward to check on the corpses and started screaming and shouting in its hoarse voice that felt like a goblin talking. Bad. Broken. Broken. Bad. Warriors can't rise. What is wrong, Matron Drascua? Alaric asked the Hagraven. Broken. The warrior is broken. Can't use it. Curses. It seemed that she was upset because the body condition of the fallen Briarheart warriors was not fixable. Wulfur has completely sliced the most important parts to completely immobilize them before plucking their hearts. Grosh. Grosh? Grosh went to comfort the Hagraven, who completely understood him. Yees, do so. The Hagraven encouraged Grosh to his suggestion, and Alaric's face paled. No, Grosh. Stop. Not listening to his brother, the 3 meters tall freak started running up the mountain raising its club. Damn it! Alaric tried to catch up, but Grosh was way too fast. Once he started running up the mountain after Grosh, it finally happened. Fuss aro da! Wulfur shouted Grosh once again. No! Alaric could see Grosh falling towards him with some rocks and rubble. He barely managed to dodge his falling brother and then started running down to check on him. Matron, please save him. He found his brother lying down but still breathing. He would do anything for his family, and that was his brother. Will do. Will do. The Hagraven discarded him with the back of her talon hand. Now, kill that man. Man is bad, just like the man who took my eye. Alaric wouldn't voice his complaints to a matron and barely suppressed his anger towards their disregard. Men, let's do it. He took his men and hoarded up the mountain from every direction as a bloody fight was about to start. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon. com/Eldokmizi. Discord. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 329 Supernova. This is extra of 5k vote. There is still one more extra of a patron, but we'll have to wait a bit. Last night, the Forsworn besieged Old Hroldan. The next day, they besieged the mountain north to it as Wulfr and his band were hiding in a high cave. The fight started once Wulfr eliminated Grosh by shouting him from the mountain. Alaric was enraged as he took his people and climbed the mountain from every direction. Chief, it was an honor. They may not know what happened to us, so let's carve one hell of a scar on those witchmen. Let's make our name reach far and wide. Wulfr's men were in high spirits despite the situation. None of you fuckers is going to die. That's an order. Wulfr was the only one who was feeling the pressure. Yes, Chief. The men smiled as they took their last order from him. Wulfr felt his breastplate and pressed on the amulet of Mara he bought from Whiterun. He was going to use it to propose to Bjorna once he returns. We are not dying today. You fucks are going to serve mead at my wedding. Yes, Chief. And we are going to party for 3 days straight. I want to shame the fanciest weddings ever happened before mine. Yes, boss. He then raised his hammer and spear and howled a war cry. Kill them all! With his savage cry, the 7 Nord young men swarmed down the slope, clashing head-on with Alaric's men. Wulfr threw the spear and skewered 6, then waved his hammer and crushed 3 heads, and by using his momentum, a kick from him launched a man like loosened kite down the mountain. 10 Forsworn, 1 breath. Now that I think about it, the weapon John called a glaive would have helped in this situation. A funny idea crossed his mind before he killed another 7 in 1 breath again. He moved like a killing machine and the 6 behind him barely caught up. They would even hide behind him if it was too much for them. Nord, I am coming for you. You will pay for what you did to my brother. A loud shout reached Wulfr. Come at me, midget sissy. Once my brother learns of what happens this day, you Forsworn will face extension. Wulfr replied to Alaric. The 2 men had their brothers at the center of their universe and would move mountains for them. Wulfr kept it in his heart that if anything happens to him, John would be here to avenge him. He howled atop of his lungs once again and started killing whoever or whatever came in his way. His hammer, the champion's cudgel, descended left and right and harvested lives as if an instrument of the old knocker, Nordic Grim Reaper. Alaric tried to stop Wulfr's momentum, but he miserably failed. Wulfr was simply an unstoppable beast. How can a man get this strong, damn it? Frustrated, Alaric looked back at the Hagravens that had some twisted smiles on their faces. They seemed to be plotting for something. Wulfr's admirable last stand was astonishingly successful, with 6 men guarding his back. He was simply hacking and slashing with a heavy weapon into lightly armored enemies, taking down a considerable number of them. But like all good things, that came to an end. He was standing with all around him turning red, the grass beneath his feet, the hammer in his hand, and his armor was bright red under the red glow of the setting sun, but more importantly, all his men behind him were lying on the ground with peaceful faces. Damn! Sovngarde already? Wulfr didn't feel bad the slightest despite how he thought, despite how he was surrounded by enemies, despite that demonic thing in front of him. Leshen. Kill. The Hagravens called it Leshen. A walking giant thing made of wood and its head was a skull of an animal. It hit the ground with its hands and roots came out like spikes. Wulfr avoided the spikes but it skewered all the fallen bodies and started consuming them. Damn you! Grant me power, Allmaker! Wulfr called for the Allmaker and the blessing he was saving got activated. Bones of Earth, the blessing that he got in Solstheim, and with it, he can get the spirits of the land to protect him. He waved his hammer at the Leshen, causing the enchantment to activate and made fire damage. Valuable to the fire, the Leshen made a grim screech, but soon the fire was down and it attacked Wulfr again. Hold him, don't let him move. Alaric rallied his men once again to finally stop Wulfar, but the latter was relentless and unstoppable. He waved his hammer in circles and reached out to any weapon coming at him, throwing it back at anyone's head. Darkness enveloped the world, and the last of the sun rays died. As it disappeared behind the horizon, Wulfar was a lone warrior on a hill of corpses of his making, suffering more wounds than anyone. He soon would fall to dizziness and fatigue before falling to his enemies. It was his final minute and darkest hour. Feeling the hand of the old knocker ripping through his chest and claiming his soul, Wulfar knew it was the time to stop. He had done enough. Still, where did that warmth come from? It tingled his skin and bathed him with energy once again. Not sure how, when Wulfar opened his eyes he saw the impossible. Not only him was looking, but it was also every forsworn around him frozen solid from the shock. The sun was rising back from where it Saturday. John was in the air hovering above the reach. He teleported in Markarth just a while ago from Solitude by the secret teleportation array of the college. With no certain plan on his mind, he kept traveling from one place to the other at the highest speed his flame Atronach hawk can muster. He even sent hawk familiars around the reach to search for Wulfar. Any single trace of battle was his to look at, but it wasn't as if he didn't find any. He actually found a lot. The Forsworn were fighting literally everywhere. Nord warrior and Forsworn clashed nearly at all places. The bridge over Karth River in front of Markarth City was fortified, the villages were tightly guarded, the travelers were being ambushed, even he was being shot arrows at as he was in the air. What is this chaos? It was impossible that Erikr managed to create all this chaos to get rid of him. It was also impossible that his labor was behind all that. He knew his fate was fortified and the Daedra can't screw him that much, also Azura wasn't that kind of Daedra. Making him labor for her was only a way for him to be redeemed. Even Azura can use him to settle any business she deems important without worrying about a loss of a champion, but things are getting way too complicated right now and his head can't process all that. He needed to focus on finding Wulfar first. She said it is a village surrounded by danger, but though its old name, it survived the long years. There, brothers unite and brothers separate. John thought fast but couldn't remember a village with an old name. He wasn't good with history, but he remembered something related to brothers. In the olden days, the founder of the Septim Empire, the great Tiber Septim, had fought his first official battle here in the Reach. At that time, he had a sworn brother called Hroldan who died in that battle. Even after Tiber Septim became the emperor and conquered the High Elves to achieve the apotheosis by mantling Lorkhan and becoming Talos, he still owed a debt to Hroldan. John could only think of one place where brothers unite and brothers separate, the place where Hroldan fell. Old Hroldan Village. He faced the east and flew with all his might trying to catch a glimpse of it, and there it was. Just at the time of sunset, John could see the town with barely few buildings intact, but it was abandoned. John felt a sense of crisis, but he kept looking around like a madman. There were too many corpses to check. "John, there is a trial over there." Nefertiti picked up traces of battle and John started to follow from the sky and soon he saw it. Wulfar alone in a horde of enemies. "Take Greed. Get him." John sent Nefertiti with Greed and raised both his hands up. His magicka ran wild in his body and all gathered at the two output points on his palms. The spell he was casting was over his level, but if he gave it his all, he will make it. The sun faded behind him just as his spell started to form. Nefertiti reached Wulfar and used Greed from the shadow to skewer anyone that tried to harm him. Then the spell formed. Supernova. A bright fireball formed around him, swallowing everything as if the sun had risen once again. The people on the ground all looked up towards him, Wulfar, the Forsworn, the Hagravens, that strange wooden creature, everyone was looking at the sun that rose from the west. Die! The sun exploded in a bright and colorful manner. Blue, purple and red lights came from the explosions, forming a beautiful scene that people would worship despite knowing that death was imminent. Nefertiti enveloped Wulfur with greed. The Hagravens enveloped themselves and Alaric with the Leshen and held to the ground, and the sky was lit from the land. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon. com/Eldokmizi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 330 Crisis. 1. This is important, guys. I made a big mistake. That's right, Don Dokmasi made an oopsie-doopsie. My Elder Scrolls calendar was a bit off and I kept writing 4E197, while it should have been 4E198. John was born on 181, 1 year after the Second Treaty of Stros-Mackay. He was conscious of the reincarnation on 182, left Riften at 196, now it is 198 and he is 17, the game starts on 201 when John is 20. I will go and edit it later. 2. This is the chapter. Don't hate me after it. There is a catch for everything. 3. Big thanks to @coffee_fiend. The sky lit, the land scorched, corpses charred and trees burned. The scale of destruction was massive and the damage was fatal. John landed beside the black sphere made of greed, and put his hand on it, drawing it back to himself. Under it there was Nefertiti in beast form and Wulfur in a bloody form. "Doing good, man?" John asked. Wulfur looked at the crater that John created with his attack, and gulped hard. "Just a moment ago there were tons of Forsworn and many things around here, and now it is just, well, let's just say that nothing will grow in this place for at least 50 years because of Magicka anomalies. Masterclass spells were nothing to scoff at, only a level below the forbidden spells, and can pretty much be described the same. Yeah. John, our people. They. I am sorry for your loss, Wolf. Truly, it was you or nothing." "Yes. Yes." Wulfur was still in shock, and seemed to be developing a trauma. John took his hand and started healing him to the best of his healing skills. Nefertiti looked around and saw something strange. "Look." She pointed at the ground where some tree started to grow in the crater. The three were taken aback, as there was no tree that can grow this fast in reality, but one was actually doing so. John sensed something bad about to come and took the front. "Nefertiti, my sword." Nefertiti carried the cube with her, and from it she took out Bloodskull, giving it to John. He held the sword tightly and urged them to retreat. Once the tree grew large enough to be almost 7 meters tall, it started to transform and take shape as a humanoid tree with an animal skull as a head. The energy of that tree creature was eerie and dark. "What in the?" John said. "No. It is that thing." Wulfur seemed on the brink of losing it. "John, kill it before." Just as he was about to warn John, the ground shook and roots came up from the ground like nothing they ever saw before. A bunch of roots targeted Nefertiti and tried to form a prison on her, but she sank in the shadow and dodged the attack while growling at the Leshen. Wulfur was also targeted but already knew how to dodge the roots and kept dodging in zigzag. John's leg was caught by a root and thorns tried to penetrate his skin, but they didn't do much damage. He just let out his aura and obliterated the root and the ones that followed after it. "Come out?" John spoke in an angry manner towards the one who tried to control the Leshen and sneak attack them. The Leshen stopped attacking, and from the hole it grew from, a few figures came out. They were total of 13 as signals as John detected. 11 Hagravens, 1 Forsworn and 1 freak-looking thing. Okay, a cursed Spriggon of sorts, some hags, a midget and a cyclops. John's tone carried a hint of mockery, but he was actually at a wrathful state. "Him. It is him." One of the Hagraven pointed at John and said, or rather screeched with her voice that sounded like a tacking raven or a very broken radio. Disregarding their hideous appearances of one of those super ugly storybook witches, John spoke rather carefully. "Excuse me, young ladies. Mind telling me who am I again?" The Hagravens were shooting resentful looks at John. He wasn't sure if it was the way they look or they are ready to suck his ghost out and trap it into a jar or something. "It is him. Yes, him. The cat thing told us. It did. It did. Hunt him down, devour his flesh. Leave his head. His head is a trophy. But strong, too strong. Cat thing didn't say that strong. 11 of us. Only him. No, he has a spirit. A young fae. The other man thing is also strong. Not strong enough. Only him. Hunt him down, take his head." Trying to make sense of the conversation of the Hagravens, John realized that someone came to the Hagravens to deal with him. It was a cat thing, probably a Cagiate. His head is wanted as a trophy for the kill too. Someone wants him dead badly, mostly Ericer, but none in Ericer's syndicate is a Cagiate. They are not allowed in towns, especially Solitude. This eliminates some options, but if a Cagiate wanted him dead, then the Thalmor has a hand in it. Why? Elsewire is part of the Aldmeri Dominion, and Cagiate do the shady work for the Thalmor. As John was realizing that, Alaric, who saw John for the first time, realized something. He looked at the Hagraven and asked, "Wait, matron, did you just say that someone wanted this man dead, and we had to lure him by catching that man?" He pointed between Wulfr and John. "Wasn't it the will of the old gods?" The Hagravens realized the desperate tone of their war leader, so they explained things to their own convenience. "No, Blood Eagle. Dear Blood Eagle, we matrons take no words from cat things or man things. It was a messenger. Yes, a messenger. Cursed Blood doesn't like him. Cursed Blood wants him dead." John and Alaric could understand what cursed blood mean. John didn't really think too much of it, but Alaric seemed to have believed the hags. Cursed blood, huh? That sorry excuse of a Daedric prince? Lord of shit, Malakath? John taunted the hags as he swore at Malakath. The Forsworn are Daedra worshippers, and they call the Daedra the old gods. They mainly worship Herson as well as Molag Bal, Maroons Dagon, Malakath and Namra. Still, the situation was going to get messy. The 11 Hagravens are strong enemies and Wulfr can barely stand. "Nefertiti, take Wulfr away for now." "Yes." She jumped at Wulfr and took him in the cube, then went away, leaving the space of John to fight freely. John may have used a lot of magicka to cast Supernova that annihilated the Forsworn force, but he alone was full of trump cards. "Don't let the Fae escape," a Hagraven shouted, pointing at Nefertiti, which irritated John. "Get in line, will you?" John threw Bloodskull with all his might at the Hagraven, splitting her head in half, then pulled the sword back with a chain made of greed. "Matron!" Alaric panicked once he saw a Hagraven die. He looked at John with hate, but realized that John was a bit too hard for him to deal with. He became fully conscious at the hateful mage that obliterated his army in one go. You won't get away with this. Watch me. You killed many Reachmen. I, Alaric, will rip your heart out for this. Let's see you try." John launched Bloodskull towards Alaric to kill him the same way as the Hagraven, but the large Leshen stepped in and blocked Bloodskull with its limbs. "Get away, Prince! Get away, get away!" The Hagravens, that were controlling the Leshen, protected Alaric and concentrated at John. Now that 10 of them remained, they needed to kill John as soon as possible. John tried to levitate in the air, but facing 10 Hagravens proved to be a challenge. He waved a Bloodskull many times and launched many energy slashes to face the large number of spells that were coming at him from every direction. Just as he got the chance, he teleported behind one of the hags and waved her sword, beheading her head clean. "Marla! Kill him! Kill Man-Thing!" The Hagravens were angry for losing 2 of their kind in one day. John kept avoiding all their spells until he was about to kill another one, but the Leshen interfered. Annoying thing! John avoided the Leshen's roots that were coming from all directions and jumped at the damn thing, cutting it from the shoulder to the waist. Grosh tried to sneak up on John with his large club, but John intercepted him easily. Fuss aro da! Grosh! Alaric shouted as he saw his brother get Thursday-umed again. Alaric can be said as the only being who might have survived the unrelenting force 3 times. He can't shout again. Go on. The Hagravens pressured John more. Excuse me. Why well tour shul. John shouted the Leshen with the fire breath shout and torched the creature like a dragon. The Leshen got badly wounded and dived in the land again to suppress the flames. Now, the Hagravens had no tank to stop between them and John. Alaric saw the matrons in a bad situation, so he grabbed his spear and ran towards John like a hunter. Once he saw the chance, he performed his high leap to catch John off guard. Seriously? John sent Greed towards Alaric and grabbed him from the air, then slammed him on the ground once, then on the other side another slam, and so on until all of Alaric's body seemed to be on the brink of collapsing. John threw him away and focused on the remaining Hagravens. Dangerous. Use the curses. The Hagravens tried their best and took out back soul gems each. Filled with the soul of human sacrifice, John's skin crawled once he felt the foul energy in the gems. Damn you fucking witches! Allmaker! Realizing that he needed his magicka more than his sword and aura, John called for the blessing of the Allmaker, the root of power. His magicka surged up in an unimaginable speed, and all the magicka around him was sucked towards him like a typhoon. The Hagravens used the black soul gems at the same time, and powerful curses were all cast at John. Fuck! The pain was unimaginable. John can barely try to stop all the pressure that came from the Hagravens' trump card. His vision was being blinded, his body was being paralyzed, his blood was starting to flow backward, all sorts of foul curses were thrown at him by 9 angry Hagravens. The sword fell from his hands, and he held his head, as if it was about to explode. Kill him! Kill! Kill! Damn man-thing killed Marla. The hags were putting their all suppressing John, and he was facing the 9 of them with all what he could. The feat was simply unimaginable to block 9 powerful curses with simply the brute force of magicka. I'll fucking murder you, bitches! John got the hang of his magicka and roared in anger. His first move was to reverse a curse on a Hagraven with all his power, causing her to explode like a balloon. The second move was by dragging a Hagraven with telekinesis towards him and blasting her brain with a thunder cookie. The third move was by transforming Greed into a blaster and shooting a bolt of aura that tore a Hagraven by half. Alaric was simply terrified. He would do anything to stop John now. Without realizing it, he was carrying a dagger and stabbing it at John's back, only for the dagger to get dent when it touched John's skin. The skin of a level 3 Jade skin stage, Dragon Frame Realm was simply not an easy thing to cut. John looked at Alaric with anger and slapped him 10 meters away. There were only 6 Hagravens left, they were annoyingly powerful. A Hagraven was a semi-daedric creature with a heart that condensed a higher form of spiritual energy, but John can simply overpower that with his firm base that was built on tedious training and not some dark rituals. The last showdown with the 6 Hagraven was a show of pure brute magic force. John's root of power was starting to slow down and fade, and the black soul gems of the Hagravens started to crack. Break! John forced all his might in one final push, destroying 3 black soul gems and causing 3 Hagravens to fall into a major backlash. He only needed to wave Greed like a chain sword and killed them in one go. Now 3 Hagravens was very manageable. John's demonic mode was fully on, and he smiled viciously towards the last 3. He wanted to rip them apart left and right. Alaric, whose body was barely moving, had a clear vision of what happens. He saw the last 3 matrons at the tip of the Reaper's blade. He had nothing to do against someone like John. All his pride of being the leader of Karthspire Forsworn was getting shattered under the might of one Nord. It was a hateful feeling he never wanted to ever experience again, but it helped him understand that he was not as powerful as he thought, and if he can't kill a single Nord with John's level, then there is no way that he will be able to slay a famous warlord like Ulfric Stormcloak. Alaric lost his band of warriors to John and Wulfr, and the 11 pillar matrons of Karthspire were reduced to 3. He was devastated, but the enemy was a true monster. Crawling his body up, Alaric looked around with desperation until his eyes landed on something. A staff. One of the dead Hagravens carried that staff and used it to control the Leshen. Without thinking, Alaric jumped at the staff and connected himself to the Leshen that was healing underground. He managed to move him underground easily and made a plan. Retreat, retreat to the rocks, Alaric called to the 3 Hagravens, who were desperate to survive. They retreated with him out of the crater while keeping John at bay as much as they could. The showdown switched from overpowering with force to casting quick flashes of destruction spells. Once Alaric made sure that he is in the right spot, he made sure to stay close to John for the sake of his only gambit. John didn't notice Alaric, and the latter started controlling the Leshen under beneath John until he confirmed that John was fully focused on the Hagravens. The area they retreated to was directly under the mountain, and made sure that he reached the blind spot of John, then called out the Leshen. Now! The land beneath John shot up and countless vines warped themselves around his leg. John was annoyed by the fact, and reached out to stop it, but the whole Leshen came up and hugged onto John without any further notice. The hell! Get away! John struggled to free himself from the Leshen to focus on the Hagravens, but he didn't notice what scheme was playing here. As soon as the Leshen locked itself on John, it started to grow a countless amount of vines from its back. These vines connected themselves to the mountains and rocks around the place, and started pulling at the same time. Screech. Star. The Leshen was in pain, but all what could Alaric think of was the putting down John. And so, he brought down the mountain on John's head. John noticed only when it was too late. Shit. Get off me! He exploded his power and sent away the Leshen, not caring about the Hagravens anymore. He was about to levitate but discovered that Hagravens switched from offense to trying to stop him from using magicka. Shit! No levitation or teleportation available. John barely avoided a large rock that was about to squish him. The fall turned from some rock fall to a complete avalanche. Alaric was in the heart of the danger zone following John. John was enraged and tried to behead the insolent Forsworn, but a large shadow dashed on and carried Alaric away. It was Grosh the Freak. John tried to avoid the avalanche, but large chunks for rocks started to fall on him. His senses of crisis were on full alarm and used the Thursdayum many times to push away falling rock. The Leshen brought itself together once again and attacked John to pin him down, and it managed to do so. An enormous shadow enveloped the Leshen and John. He looked up only to see a large falling boulder coming at him. Shit! The only thing he could do was to press his sword to the ground and try to shield himself with anything. Not far from where John had the mountain on his head, Nefertiti was tending to Wulfr, and the later was resting to the rock. They felt the strong shaking of the earth and saw a whole mountain fall towards John. John. No. Wulfr panicked and ran towards John, but thud. Nefertiti collapsed. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal. me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon. com/Eldokmizi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 331 Confusion, 12th of Sun's Dawn, February. 4E199. Winterhold. Since the day when chaos broke in the Reach, Thane John Dare of Winterhold was never seen again. Questions asked with barely anything answered. Why did the Forsworn start the chaos? Why did the Nordic clans of the Reach participate in the big fight? Where are John and Nefertiti? These questions were barely answered by the only known survivor who was suffering from PTSD, Wulfr. And 3 months passed. Right now, it is Sun's Dawn, February, of the new year, and no single progress on John's or Nefertiti's whereabouts. Are they alive? Yes. How do they know? Nerina's divination said so. Also, when the search trackers reached the avalanche site, no sign of John was found and the place was all dug up. John was not there anymore. Can telepathy reach him? Supposedly, even if he is trapped in oblivion itself, but it doesn't reach him at all. Something is blocking it. What can the Dare Dragon Company do? Absolutely nothing. They can't be allowed in another hold with more than 200 men, which are far from enough to deal with the Forsworn. Even when they wanted to pass through the Pale, Jarl Skald the Elder blocked the roads. What about the firemen's? They are investigating and searching. What about Nerina? Alf Fyr forbade her from doing anything more than trying to search. That still didn't stop her from using astral protection, a master-class mysticism spell, to look for John day after day. What about Jonrad and Hilda? Jonrad was the first to go and look for John. He simply took his katana and cloak, then left with a short note. Hilda could only leave her children, Thor and Idun, at Nerina's and Scotty's care before taking her ship, the Guilty Crown, and sailing to the Karth River. What about Alina, Jullinar, and Ela? Well, here is the thing. Alina can't leave Winterhold because she is nursing Jullinar. Why? On the way back to Winterhold, Jullinar collapsed on the ship coming home to Winterhold. The timing was confirmed to be the same time as the mountain fell on John. Ela ventured in the Reach about 5 times in those 3 months and fought with many Forsworn, but couldn't find a single trace of John. Almost everyone in Winterhold was grasping on their hearts. If Thane John disappeared, things may get as bad as before. The central figure of the hold was known for both his valor and mischief. He was the central pillar of Winterhold's economy, and even though Jarl Career started to act righteously lately, none trusted him for good reasons. This situation that lasted for 3 months started to attract many enemies to Winterhold. If not that Winterhold is a desolate place, all colors of evil would have lurked in a long time ago. The questions about John Dare never stopped. Even Ulfric Stormcloak sent his people to talk to the Dare Dragon Company and see if there is anything they can assist with. Of course, Ulfric denied that he has any power to control the actions of Jarl Skald. It wasn't entirely a lie, but he didn't want to risk such an action very soon. None of that mattered anyway. John's family can take care of their own, and everyone was sure that John will show up. It was Nerina who had faith in that the most. Still, the most devastated person was none other than Wulfr. He witnessed everything and came out the lone survivor with a tragic story to tell. He was used to trick John in a trap. He fought for 3 days and lost all his men. He witnessed his brother get buried under a mountain, and the rest of the story was still tragic. Once he saw the mountain fall, he lost his sense of reason and ran towards it only to find Nefertiti collapsing behind him. Not sure what to do, Wulfr carried her and started moving the rubble despite his multiple injuries. He buried and buried without any result. The rubble was too much for him to handle. He looked back and saw the surviving 3 Hagravens trying to get their hands on Nefertiti, calling her Fae. He was enraged and threw his hammer at them, then grabbed Nefertiti and ran. The 3 Hagravens shape-shifted into 3 flocks of crows and started to chase him. He could only jump in the river and pass out only to find himself being saved by some companions who were investigating the chaos in the Reach. Once he woke up, he couldn't find Nefertiti and his mental condition became worse. He got identified and sent to Whiterun for healing. He made contact with John Battleborn, and the news of what happened spread. Since his arrival to Winterhold, all he kept saying was, "It should have been me." He kept himself shut in his house and barely ate anything. Bjorna and Sviti were the only ones on daily contact with him. They struggled to put him back together. At Wolfer's front yard, Alina, Sviti, Bjorna were all gathered talking. "Have you told him yet?" Alina asked. Bjorna shook her head. "I still think it will cheer him up a bit. You two are older than me and John and can just get married before it happens," Alina said. "Are you mad? Wolfer would never marry if John is still missing," Bjorna said. "Bjorna, it has been 3 months. I can tell that you are pregnant already. Soon everyone will find out too." Bjorna nodded in silence. "How are things on your end?" Sviti asked. "The company is doing well. Some partners are skeptical about me and John's case, but as he said, nothing will stop the big machine," Alina said. "Do you need anything we can help with?" "No, just focus on Wolfer. I sense a storm coming at Winterhold and we all should prepare. Tell Wolfer to man up and come help me." The two nodded to Alina. "How is Jo?" "Better, she can stand up now, but her fever is back. She vomits what she eats, so we give her easy things to digest. Ela comes by with meat she hunted, and we eat together, holding up and all." Alina seemed to be holding up well, different than Wolfer, who completely crumbled. "Thank you, Alina. We all depend on you." Alina nodded with a smile. The firekeeper mask, hiding her eyes, kept away a lot of sorrow and sadness to her alone. As she left Wolfer's place, she walked home stealthily in the empty street. Her face was expressionless and her steps were quiet. No one knew what she was thinking of in that state. All of a sudden, her firekeeper mask started to glow and her expressions turned fearful. Her eye powers were acting up again. "Damn it! Stop!" she groaned. But her eyes didn't stop at all. Right now, the firekeeper mask can't contain her powers like before. She was suffering from her own gift. Ever since she was born, she was feared for her different eyes. When she was a child, she grew up mentally sooner than usual. She understood things earlier than any kid, and got concerned about things a kid shouldn't get concerned about. When she was recognized by the cult of Kine, she was already too far to reach, and became lonelier than before. When she became a teenager, her beauty bloomed and her fame attracted many. When she learned magic and martial arts, she was peerless, which can be another word for friendless. She always suffered from the gifts she had until the day she met John, and she was always after him in many things. For the first time, she was in someone's shadow and she loved it. Not the loner anymore. Now, the light of her universe disappeared and all sorts of anxiety came at her. She was not a pathetic weak girl, she can fight all. Still, herself wasn't that easy opponent she can face. Alina took out the thing John gave to her before he leaves. She looked at it and felt it closely. A small trinket like that was the thread she held to John's will with. As she thought positively, her eyes started to get under control once again. She calmed down and walked home. Upon her arrival, she saw her griffin Lochther sleeping peacefully in the yard in its nest. His life was mostly playing and sleeping lately, even though she kept training him on battle and teaching him how to carry her on his back. It was already very big and would go hunting on its own from time to time. With a slight smile, Alina's mood became somewhat better and she walked in the house. She met Scotty, Jenna and Nurina, who were taking care of the kids. Hilda's action of leaving the small 4-month-old kids was reckless and her mother scolded her. Alina passed to the main bedroom where Jelinar was. She saw her sitting on the bed and eating some soup. "Feeling good?" Alina sat beside Jelinar. "A little. How was your day?" Jelinar asked. "As usual." "Anything?" "No, nothing new." Jelinar was not in a talkative mood. Between brooding, crying and falling ill, she did nothing else. Alina was at a loss of words and tried to comfort her partner, but she was not that much better herself on the inside. Alina and Julinar snuggled together, and kept it silent until one of them spoke. I wonder how is he doing? Markarth, earlier this day. Markarth, a dwarven city built on the surface unlike other underground dwarven cities. The Nords prized it ever since the disappearance of the Dwemer, but many others coveted it. The city was famous for its large silver mine run by the Silverblood clan. The mine also serves as a prison. The mine's silver ore gets delivered from the prison to the smelter outside the mine to be made in ingots and to the pockets of the Silverblood family. In the smelter, many workers come and go under the watching eyes of Mulish Grosugars, the overseer of the smelter business. One of those newcomers was one the miners called Draugr-Face. Draugr-Face was a silent but abnormally large fellow, mostly mute. His left foot was replaced by a prosthetic one, some of his left fingers were missing, but most importantly, the left side of his face was badly damaged to the point that he was called Draugr-Face. He always kept his face hidden though. Even though people were wondering what could put such a beast of a man down, all were fearful to approach him. The amount of ore that man can carry was not natural. His power transcends the common sense. Draugr-Face has only appeared 1 month ago, but he is the best worker in the smelter. Mulish Grosugars wouldn't even try to scold him. Draugr-Face lives in the Warrens, the home of the homeless and beggars in Markarth. He always returns early and sits in lotus position meditating the magicka. No matter how long he tried, he could only meditate without the ability to get the magicka out of his body. He used to be a very talented mage, but now, he can't even help but to punch the ground in desperation. He took off his shirt and looked at the state of his body. There was that brown vine growing on his body and locking him from casting magic. Losing limbs was something manageable to him, as he always had a plan for everything. The problem is, none of those plans had the part where he can't cast magicka. He calmed his pointless anger and lied on the old bedroll. His prosthetic foot turned into a formless black matter that he used as a pillow. A lot needed to be done, and he has a devious plan. Darkness swelled up from his heart. He already became a monster, so why not act like one? He closed his eyes and let his head flow to the past. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon, com/Eldokmizi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 332 Trapped. An extra sponsored by @Omnisiac10. Sorry for being late with it. Some may think that the past 3 months were hellish. Actually, everyone will think that way, but the only one who will disagree will be the man in question himself, John. How so? The answer to that question is not really complicated. Within a predicament, one finds opportunity, and that's what was it all about, opportunity. Don't get me wrong, John suffered the first few days in his journey ANF. He would hate to relive those first few days. Torture was a daily routine, not that amateur-level torture of an imperial prison or a Nordic pit. It was a forsworn torture, the one you would end up a fluidless corpse after a few days of experience. But you are not John Dare, are you now? Oh right. And by fluidless, it doesn't mean bloodless, it means everything. Ever seen a Draugr? Yep, that fluidless, even the best moisturizer in the world will face a true challenge with you. Also, one question. Ever wondered how Briarheart warriors are made? Now let's hope that I piqued your interest. 3 months earlier. Dropping a mountain on someone is a bit of an overkill, right? Well, John didn't die. You probably guessed that by now, but don't you think it is wonderful? How in the blazes can anyone survive getting buried to begin with? From the lack of air to how much sand can go in your boot. Don't let the list start, the problems are endless. But thanks to the enemies of yesterday, John was dug up by the Leshen. John regained consciousness a long time after he was dug up. Surely he was locked up in the weirdest way possible. His vision was not clear, but concentrating on his body revealed what happened to him. Nope, you guessed wrong. His limbs were all still intact. His only injury was a concussion in his head that disturbed his senses greatly. Where the NRG? And here it came, the first setback. Due to his head injury, whenever he tries to talk, a massive headache strikes like a real bitch. Now imagine him shouting a Thursdayum. No, wait. Don't. Thursdayum is a bahahahahad idea. Where were we? Oh yes. John was locked up in a tree trunk. Not like he was inside of it, no, he was stuck in the trunk from outside as it grew around some of his body parts. Now you might be thinking, shouldn't John just go kaboom and use his amazing brute physical strength to shatter the mere wood? Well, that sounded like a good idea to him too. ARG, shit. Just as he tried to break free, many things stabbed into his body. Another setback. Brute force is out of the question. Most likely the tree itself was stabbing him by a thorny vine warped going around his body. What about magic, battle spirit, or godly blessings? That damn vine was really something. John could see that the thorns on the vine have dug through his tough skin, draining his magicka directly. And that's the third setback. No magic, no brute force, and no Thursdayum. Some might think this can't get any worse, but still things are way worse than anyone can think. John can't contact the augur for some reason and Shadow is not picking up. Also, the Haven Cube should be with Nefertiti as she used it to take Wolfer away from the fight. Now, the word stranded can describe John's situation really well, but it wasn't all that bad. There is always company. As his senses started to recover slowly, the place around him started to get more visible. He was in some sort of a grove in a cave with barely any rays of sunlight coming down from the gabs illuminating the hellish place around him. To think that this was Nirn and not oblivion is a wonder on its own. Well, at least he got some company out of it. There were bodies, a lot of them. Bodies stuck with him in the trunk of the tree, bodies skewered through its branches, bodies pinned by its roots, bodies hanged by its vines. It was terrifying and mysterious. His rock-solid mentality was put to the test for the first time since he was in his own mind realm, thoughts and fears, prayers and curses, panic. Yes, panic. This was no ordinary tree, its leaves were blood red, and its wood moved like living organs. The tree had strange fruits that seemed to be the reason why such a demonic tree was cultivated on human bodies. Awake. He is awake. Godblood, he is awake. A Hagraven came from the entrance of the cave. It looked at John and called him a weird name. As it called, other hags started to come to the cave and kept looking at John. Just by their ugly looks, one can learn the phenomenon opposite to having a boner. Yes, it is that bad. One of the hags went to John with an eerie smile on its ever so disgusting face. It pointed one of its claws towards John's right shoulder and stabbed in his flesh with it. Sadly for the hag, its claw broke. Grr. Hateful. Hateful. It started screaming as it tried to put the claw back desperately. The reason was obvious. John's meditative training is in the jade skin stage, his skin is that hard. Maybe the thorns on the tree are stronger than the claws of the hags, but that doesn't mean they would give up. Another hag came out with a black dagger that gave of a greenish luster. Even for John, who was blocked from magic, he felt that the dagger is pure evil and it would wound him badly. John even recognized the dagger. Nettlebane. Shit. A cursed and very old dagger that can do terrible kinds of damage. John would do anything to not get touched by that blade, but sadly there isn't anything he can do. No, there was one thing. The only energy that he can control is the essence energy in his body. He hurriedly circulated the essence energy inside him, and created a layer around his bones and organs. He was even to shift his organs to avoid vital injuries. The hag holding Nettlebane came at John and stabbed his shoulder. His skin showed some resistance at first, but it was tore under Nettlebane. John quivered and groaned in pain, but the hag never stopped until the nettlebane went in an inch at least. It then took the dagger out and licked the blood on it. The hag turned towards the other ones and shouted in its evil voice, "God blood!" The hags cheered in joy. John was trying to stay conscious and get a hint of what is going on. Suddenly calling his blood God blood is really fucked up, looking at how the hags treat the vessel of whatever that blood is. Still, what kind of situation is that? God blood? Maybe because of him being a Dragonborn that his blood is godly or whatever. What other explanation can it be? Still, that was not the current problem. That hag was raising the blade again. Fuck. Arg. My head. The hag started stabbing at other parts on John without targeting vitals. It skillfully made John bleed, and his blood flowed on the demonic tree. Between his state of discomfort, not being able to cast magic, head concussion, speaking problems, being stabbed like that was and bleeding a lot was the all drawing his senses away, yet he fought it all and somehow managed to survive till the end. Finally, the hags left him on the tree with the other corpses. All the quivering and resisting made the thorny vines stab him deeper and deeper, numbing him from all pain. Still, he was ashen white and his body was cold after the horrible experience. All that time, he managed to protect his vitals by his inner energy and survived what would kill anyone else. Just as soon as he released his inner essence energy to try to heal himself from the inside, he sensed another energy invading his body. The hell? John directed his essence energy towards it and started fighting it away. The invading energy seemed to be very violent and tried to invade his body from all sides. John could estimate that this energy came through the vines, and it is mostly the tree's energy. Its purpose was to devastate him from the inside and prey on his essence bit by bit. John was enraged and realized that this evil tree is trying to consume him like the other corpses around him. Not that he expected any less, but the energy of the tree was tricky. If he resisted it too much, the thorny vines would dig in him. Yes, the situation is bad, but John smiled for some reason. He would laugh if he can too. Maybe essence energy and bodily fluids are the tree's favorite food, but John found a ray of hope in that demonic tree. Its energy is vital podomic energy. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon. com/Eldokmizi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 333 Anxiety. Extra Chapter. Every new plus $10 patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter. 5,000 vote. Extra Chapter. 8,000 vote. Hey Draugr-face. Workday is over. Crawl back to your crib. Hey, don't say that. What? Guy's an idiot. Doesn't talk, doesn't eat, think he scares me. Mommy. Thud. Buzz off, you two pieces of shit. Work as much as he does, then complain. The overseer stuck up for Draugr-face. Today was a usual day in Markarth. John goes up, everyone calls him Draugr-face. He works in silence, steals some money and stuff, then goes back to the Warrens at the end of the day. He grew up in Riften, and Markarth was very similar to Riften. Tycoon family, incompetent jarls, and evil lurking everywhere. Still, out of his last month's daily routine, John had a break off this day. He was still looking for a way to rid himself of those shackles around him. The vines that wrapped his body were really limiting him way too much. Still, the new magic he discovered after he broke through the jade skin stage was something terrifying. A natural ability that has a lot of potential if he managed to learn it properly. But that wasn't the time for research, it was the time for healing. John had an appointment with the alchemist. Come in. This way. Just as he arrived at the Hag's Cure, an alchemy shop in Markarth, the owner Bothila invited him in. Bothila was an old reach man that is not associated with the Forsworn, so John went to her seeking a cure. Come in here, The place is empty, just me and my assistant. John walked in wearing his work clothes that he has nothing other than them and hiding his head with a hood. Once he sat where Bothila pointed. He removed the hood and the shirt. Sigh. Poor boy. Bothila sighed and checked John's body. The injuries on your fingers and left leg are clean despite your line of work. I am amazed you didn't get any inflammation or infection. Also, the skin on your face and your left side will get its liveliness soon. Just stick to the medicine. John nodded. Did you bring enough money? John nodded again. Then we can start. Just close your eyes and rest. A couple more sessions and your skull will heal, and we will hear your voice. Bothila treated John kindly and he was thankful for her actions. Kindness didn't come without money though. Also, I contacted some people regarding these vines growing on your body. I don't know what happened for them to be alive on you as a host. They have clearly transformed from plants to parasites now. It is unheard of, so don't have high hopes. I am still wondering how did that happen to you in the first place. The questions of Bothila were many as any person should have. John can answer some, can't answer some and don't want to answer some. Still, those answers took his memory way back. 3 months ago. The Hagravens would surely show day after day to make sure that the process is going smoothly, but what they didn't foresee was John as lively as ever while being stuck in the trunk of the tree for more than 3 days. He didn't look tired or hungry. His eyes were still bright and didn't show any signs of discomfort. Explaining it as John is a powerful enemy and possessed the blood of a god, the Hagravens discarded their worries as good fortune for the tree they are cultivating on dead bodies. A day or 2 passed and the visitor this time was not the hags but rather a face that John could recognize, Alaric of Karthspire and his freak brother Grosh. Look, Grosh. The Nord who hurt you, we captured him. Grosh. Grosh. Ha! I know, right? Their victory over John came at a high price, 300 forsworn and 8 Hagravens for just a single man. Alaric bitterly called it a victory, but he knew better. Every forsworn family held a funeral because of that man ever so comfortably resting in a tree. Only the most heinous lawbreakers, traitors and Nords get to be offered to the trees. Consider yourself lucky, Alaric said. He looked at John. Red hair was like the flowing blood on a battlefield and eyes gleaming blue but still looked down at Alaric. To him, John seemed younger than what his size would give off, but it didn't matter to Alaric. John was a disaster. John looked at Alaric. A midget for a savage whose hair was unkempt and face was full with red war paint that resembled a bird. He stood proud in front of John as if he was examining his trophy. Motherfucker! You cost me a lot of men, but here you are, broken and conquered like all you Nords should be, Alaric said, taunting John. John closed his eyes with no interest in Alaric. Why even bother with a small fry? Alaric didn't like John's reaction and pressed on. The matrons call you Godblood, right? Not sure where is that coming from, but you are one of those ones blessed by Nord gods, right? Look at you now. Not even able to break free. Do you know what these trees are called? They are the Briarheart trees. Once a person like you is put on one of those trees, the tree will eat them. And what's left will turn into a piece of garbage. You will be the largest piece of Nord garbage we ever had. As Alaric finished, John opened his eyes and examined the tree closely, then understood what kind of a tree it was. He didn't see any tree like that in the game, and the Reachmen kept the matters regarding the Briarheart warriors a closely guarded secret. We make bets on how long will it take you to die and how many hearts will the tree give us from you. This will be magnificent, I have high hopes of you. Alaric kept provoking John with words to no avail. It was understandable. John is strong and strong people are hard to break. There is no way the Nord who destroyed his best warriors would crumble that easily. Still, Alaric had one last thing to ask. Tell me, you know that man they call Ulfric? Ulfric Stormcloak, that menace. He can shout like you and that man you came to save. Did you learn from him? Is he your leaders? Don't worry, you can't shout, the tree won't let you anyway. So that man. Can I kill him? Alaric asked with frenzied eyes. It was his sole purpose of being after all. Kill Ulfric and avenging everything. He honed his skill for many years and killed a lot of Nords, but none were like Jon and Wulfr. Of course, it was natural for him to think that they are related to his figure of the devil, but Jon's response made him very uncomfortable. Jon's eyes were showing mockery, and he moved his head as if saying, "Sure, why not?" Alaric felt upset about Jon's haughty reaction that didn't seem like a prisoner in his hand. "Just you wait. I will stick that blade in Ulfric's heart and those who stand between me and him. But first, I will have the satisfaction of seeing you dying slowly." Alaric turned up and was about to leave, but he remembered something and picked up a rag he brought with him. "Almost forgot, we dug that up with you. Nice blade." In his hand, Alaric held Bloodskull. "I will be keeping it from now on, a sword worthy of Alaric, the Blood Eagle. I am not great with naming, and I know that you have taken some sort of silence oath, so I will name this sword after me, Blood Eagle. Isn't that nice, Grosh?" "Grosh! I knew you would agree with me." Alaric was satisfied with what he did. Claiming another warrior's weapon in front of him without killing him is no different than staining his honor and name. Alaric took Bloodskull in front of Jon and called it Blood Eagle after himself. Jon wasn't amused with the fact, but there is no way Alaric can use Bloodskull anyway. It was Jon's personal weapon for a good reason. Alaric turned to Jon with the sword in his hand and pointed it at Jon's shoulder. "I don't want to be called a thief, but I think this weapon can injure you unlike ordinary ones. That's why I will use it to shed some blood and claim it mine. No dishonor to you in that." Alaric said so and pressed the sword at Jon's shoulder. "Grosh!" Grosh felt a bad premonition and tried to pull Alaric away from Jon, but he was too late. Jon smiled faintly as the sword touched his shoulder and used the essence energy inside him to activate the aura leftovers in Bloodskull. Just like that, a sphere of red tyrant aura exploded from the sword and blasted everyone around it. Alaric and Grosh were pushed back a few steps, but the tree and Jon were right as they were. Groan! The thorny vines tightened itself at Jon for doing such a naughty move and caused him to groan. Alaric, who caused this, was ashen pale. Not only the blade obey its master, but the dormant aura was mighty. Alaric remembered vividly what happened a few days ago when he faced Jon in battle, and the festive mood he was in was shattered. He looked between Bloodskull and Jon as if he was defeated in a manhood contest. Jon kept the expressionless act after the thorny vines stopped tightening on him. Alaric was enraged, but the hags soon showed up and demanded that he leave the Briarheart trees and saplings without causing a problem. Alaric looked at Jon hatefully before turning and leaving with Grosh. Still, Jon saw something that made him groan and look at Grosh with strong killing intent. Alaric and Grosh noticed what Jon was looking at. Alaric thought it would be a good way to make a comeback at Jon. He took the hammer that was hanging on Grosh's back and showed it off. "This is really a good hammer, befitting of my mighty brother. We took it from the area. Seems like its former owner won't be needing it anymore." Alaric smiled and gave the warhammer back to Grosh. This was Wulfr's warhammer, the champion's cudgel. Alaric's words made Jon feel like a fire was burning in his abdomen. He tried to convince himself that Wulfr and Nefertiti have escaped and will get help soon, but he never thought that Wulfr's hammer would appear here. He was now angry and worried. Because of his negative emotions, his inner resistance to the Briarheart tree, he was stuck and almost crumbled, and the tree's energy almost ravaged through his body. Jon was able to calm himself, but his heart, he was really worried, and the only thing he can do was to pray or hope for Wulfr's safety. If he can talk, he would pray, but he hasn't prayed for almost 18 years. Not even sure his prayers would be heard in a foreign word, but he prayed anyway. Just as he calmed down, he started to think of himself right now. He needed a plan and do not expect any kind of help. The worst-case scenario, he is presumed dead. He knew his family will do some chaotic actions, but he would manage no matter what. With such a mentality, John regained his senses and focused on the tree and its pedomic energy that he long since coveted. This is his opportunity. Either he eats the tree or the tree eats him. 3 months forward, Winterhold. John's guess wasn't off. His family was doing all it could. When he disappeared 3 months ago, all the burdens of Winterhold fell on Alina. She had her clan, the Firemane younger generation that is now all present in Winterhold. She had John's influence. She had all the power to command any creature in Winterhold. Even the Jarl was respectful towards her more than John. A lady is a lady after all, and she was the overlady of Winterhold, daughter of Patriarch Sigurd Moonblade and woman of John Dare, the strongest two in Winterhold. Still, none could fill that void anymore. John and Nefertiti are missing, which means half of the family is gone. Jelinar is bedridden and her situation is unstable with no known reason at all. Even Jelinar's teacher Nurilian said, he has no logical explanation for her illness, and he came every day to check and prepare the medicine. Just who to cry or run to when there is none she can lean on anymore. She is not even 18 yet and her world is facing a disaster. When she went to Nurina for help, the latter told her to be patient and just hold on. Is it possible? She thought. Well, the act of thinking was something she wanted to avoid at all costs. She started to hate Winterhold, that she is running for the sake of nothing but leaving her loved ones facing God knows what suffer. Is running the damn hold even worth it at that point? There is no point in making a beautiful garden for a broken palace. She needed peace. A time out. A short escapee. She opened the window and teleported back to the house yard. Lochther, up. Without prior notice, she jumped on Lochther and it flew carrying her. Destination? Her favorite palace in this world, the Elder Gleam's sanctuary. PayPal. PayPal. Me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove. Patreon. com/Eldokmizi. Discord. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 334 Gains. Extra Chapter. Every new plus $10 patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter. 5,000 vote. Extra Chapter. 8,000 vote. How is your hearing now? Is your voice coming without a problem? Yes, thank you. A little better. Good kid. Don't be rash just yet. One more session and you will be just fine. John nodded and left the Hag's Cure, going back to the Warrens. He was a large person and was known in the Warrens as someone who can launch people with a slap. None would stand in his way, but some would still try to act as his underlings like annoying pests. John was only busy meditating anyway. His mood was clear and set on a series of goals, getting healed up, getting rid of those vines and finally, finishing the third labor. But before one gets revenge, one must fill his growling belly. John went out to the market and found some clean food stall, and here it comes. John is a picky eater even if it is the apocalypse and had high standards in food, a habit that reincarnated with him. John took the best food he can get and walked up the city to a certain spot. There some beggars and miners would go and pick a seat to the anticipated performance. It was under the balcony of the Temple of Dibella, the goddess of love, art, and beauty. Every few nights, the priestesses of Dibella would gather up at the balcony with the Sibyl of Dibella to perform a musical prayer to Dibella. While only some of the female members of the cult of Dibella can attend these prayers, no one else is allowed. Still, the beggars are the only ones who get to sit under the balcony and listen. John also wanted to hear the music. He went up the stairway to the temple and walked around the cliff to the area where the beggars sit. He saw a few beggars already up here, yet one glance at the giant made them run like ants. John didn't mean to scare them, but it was not bad anyway. He can pick the comfiest rock to set on. Back on the balcony, the priestesses were gathering on wooden chairs lined up in a circle. They weren't many of them, but from the way they spoke to someone, John realized that there is someone important among them. "We are honored that you joined us this night for the hymn, my lady, but aren't you going to get tired? You still haven't recovered yet." A priestess spoke. "It is okay, Senna. If I don't go out, the little one won't go out. See, she is so scared of people." "But, my lady, since when did we start to pick up homeless kids? Shouldn't you at least send to the steward of the keep to enlist her to the orphanage?" Senna seemed protesting. "Senna, that's enough," another voice joined the conversation. "Hamal. The words of the Sibyl of Dibella are the words of Dibella. Don't argue a lot. Now let's start. Here, little one. You can play with that drum, don't break it." The priestesses ended their conversation and started playing calm and beautiful music. John felt peaceful listening to it, and he took some of his warm food and ate quietly and started thinking of what happened last time he heard music. 2 months ago. Surprising himself and shaming any other living organism on Tamriel, John survived for a full month in that tree. Even though he should have died from hunger and thirst, even though his muscles should have got badly damaged and blood stopped flowing in them from the way he was put in the tree, even though he should have bled too much to live, even though the briar-heart tree should have sucked his life force and turned him into a lifeless husk of a corpse, he still managed to live. Seeing something unbelievable, the hags and the forsworn were at their wits' end. They tried to kill John multiple times during the last month, but he was too much to deal with. Ordinary weapons can't hurt his skin, Nettlebane can kill him, but even the cursed blade can't make him bleed anymore. Just how much terror can that Nord give them? As their last attempt, Alaric stabbed John at the heart, but John didn't die. John kept looking down Alaric, who was traumatized that day. The Hagravens then had to step in and seal John along with the tree. They couldn't understand what John was, so they kept everyone clear from him. John got into their heads without even doing anything. Well, at least they didn't behead me, ignorant savages. Just how on Nirn could John not bleed to death, getting an organ failure or surviving a stab to the heart? The answer was not simple at all. John himself was the most impressed one, as he knew the secrets behind all that. Knowing the truth behind the trick can sometimes be underwhelming, but John was impressed with his progress. To survive, he needed energy, and he happened to be surrounded by his favorite source, the vital podomic energy. To empower his human machine, he needs food. Food becomes energy in the cells, but there were various kinds of energies in the body, but the most important one is the essence energy that comes from the soul. To keep his system alive, John started a trial and error process on how to distribute his essence energy on the cells. It was tedious work at first, but he later felt his body condition feel better. How to acquire more energy was all depending on the briarheart tree. John kept absorbing the vital podomic energy that was assaulting him and replenished his essence energy. The briarheart tree also managed to absorb some of John's essence energy, but he was superior in the term of manipulating energy. He was only relying on the tree trimming to assaulting him because he can't cast a spell to absorb the podomic energy it has. If the tree was not a mindless being, it should have known better and stopped attacking him, let him die from the lack of energy. The next problem that John met was the bleeding. He couldn't stop the hags from stabbing him every day to get some god blood on the tree. He was really annoyed with it, and replenishing the blood with essence energy was a pain. The answer to that was trying to achieve an inner control over his blood. He went deeper with his meditating, deeper than wherever he went before, and started unraveling the mysteries of the human body. He started concentrating on the regeneration of the cells, and how can he control things that he never controlled before. His research was simple and crude but very fruitful. He learned the ways of the blood and how to manipulate it inside his body, how to stop the flow, how to hasten it, how to avoid certain blood vessels altogether, and even how to detect any harmful microorganisms inside the blood. Just like that, when the hags tried to cut him for blood, only a few drops fell and nothing else happened. In his free time of fighting off the tree's energy and cultivating it inside him, John's research went further and allowed him to control some parts of his body that were impossible to control, like how to move his organs from inside. Shifting his heart's place was the secret why he didn't die when Alaric stabbed him where the heart should be. The body has two kinds of organs, those which follow the will of the person and those which are programmed to do their thing. John can now control most of those organs, and skillfully too. This was also the secret of how he avoids muscle atrophy. By that point, the hag started to think that John is an immortal, and started to use some magic on him, which posed him no threat. The hags used the hedge magic. Magic that doesn't fall under any school of magic, and was quite famous between the orcs and the reachmen. The term hedge magic can describe any unusual forms of magic that are not widely used in the community of mages. John, being the magic genius he is, observed the hedge magic with all its wrong practices and strange heck. He started to get a basic idea around it too. It was simply magic practiced in a mix of primal and ancient ways, containing many lost secrets in the art. John saw some aspects of necromancy, prison magic, blood magic, curses, voodoo, astral protections, sacrificial ritual and chanting rites, and many things. The hags would sing scary songs, and make tricky spells, and command hidden forces. John was simply impressed by his captors for a while, until he unraveled most of the mysteries, and then lost his interest. All this and that happened in the last month. His visitors were barely anyone in turning 2. The only person who would come was Grosh. John stopped seeing him as a freak once he learning that he was transformed from a normal kid to such a creature by the hags. Not even aware of his own age, Grosh always acted like a kid and would bring kids to play in the Briarheart Grove too. The Forsworn always lived this way anyway. John didn't care about them and would kill them as soon as he gets the chance to do so. And like that, a month passed. From the hags to Grosh and Alaric, to the kids that play with Grosh, John had no visitor interesting enough for him to open his eyes to, or at least that was the case until someone finally decided to visit. "Oh, old friend, you look like a mess." A black serpent appeared before John. John raised his head and grinned. "You should have seen the other guys." The serpent wasn't taken aback, as it had seen how John descended on a Forsworn army and killed them. "Planning to leave any time soon?" "Not yet. Need some help." "And help I shall offer." The black serpent turned into a black fox and leaped on the Briarheart tree, then reached a gap and flowed in like a liquid. "There are some things you need to know." "Yeah. Welcome back, Shadow." Present time, East March, Elder Gleam Sanctuary. Lochthar flew away to play away from the sanctuary as Alina walked in. The acolytes of Kine that were stationed around the area all recognized Alina and Lochthar, and withdrew immediately from the sanctuary. The Sibyl of Kine was officially their spiritual leader, so it was natural to bother her or her annoying family, but it was known around Skyrim what happened to John and how Alina was carrying all the burdens after he disappeared. As she was sure that Lochthar and the acolytes are away, Alina took off the firekeeper mask and her flawless face and red ruby eyes were revealed. How beautiful can a girl be? One may ask. Well, beauty is a gift from God as anything else, so there is no fixed scale. With that, it is safe to say that despite being the Sibyl of Kine, Dibella has done one hell of a job on Alina. But today that beauty was clouded by a lot of sadness. Alina, who suppressed her tears all that time, sat on the side of the pond at the center of the sanctuary and rested her head on a root of the elder gleam. She started remembering all her favorite times with John, like how they got on the wrong foot when they met for the first time, and how bad she was defeated when she challenged him on the title of the Nurina's Legacy Apprentice. There was that time when her face veil fell and a fight almost broke between her overprotective father and John over her, the times they fought for Winterhold together, the travels they had together, the places, the study, the drinking, the sex, the strange stuff he showed her. Now that all this was gone, bitterness only took its place. She didn't know why, but her memories came in that order. Burdened by all that, her chest got tightened. She stood up and undid her dress, and it fell around her feet. Her graceful figure was revealed to no man's eyes other than John's, and she touched her sides, as he liked to cuddle with her all night, missing his touch, and teasing. Waving around her hair that reached her knees, Alina jumped in the water. The water was cold but not too cold, it gave her the comfort she needed. The world underwater was calm and slow, it could contain all her thoughts and worries. She felt like it wouldn't hurt if she stayed under the water for a little longer, just a little bit of that peace. Sadly, you will hurt yourself if you don't breathe. Not sure how, a voice talked to her from behind her shoulder. Alina panicked and jumped out of the water, standing on its surface by her frost steps spell. Magic was ready to be cast at whoever appears, and soon someone appeared. From the pond she was diving in, another woman appeared and rose from the water looking at Alina. Alina couldn't process how can anyone look at her in the eye without getting harmed, but just some time ago when she met Alf Fyr, the latter made eye contact with Alina and felt a little tingle. John was as special as Alina, if not more, and Alf was insanely powerful. This meant that the woman in front of Alina right now is as strong as Alf at the very least. I must run. Why would someone so strong sneak up on her if not for bad intentions? Alina stomped on the water and pushed a strong frost force on the woman before jumping away. No, wait! The woman panicked, but as soon as the attack reached her, it went through her without it touching her at all. A space mage. Alina was stunned, but she knew she was in trouble if a space mage chased her. She needed to hinder the woman for enough time, then run out of the detection range. Please, listen. She manipulated the water with telekinesis and used it to make a cage and froze it with essence energy. Even a space mage can't walk through that. This was all done as Alina was performing textbook footwork on the water and jumped away to land on one of the large roots of the elder gleam tree. She picked her dress and was about to run, but suddenly, the root moved on its own and threw Alina away. Geez. I said stop moving. And it is rude to step on someone's root in their home. Didn't anyone teach you that? The woman who was caged in a frost cage destroyed it by moving the root while shouting at Alina. Alina has already landed on her head while her but stuck up like a dork. Still, as soon as she heard the woman speaking, she shot up with a face full of mud and hair full of leaves. She spat out some grass before speaking. Wait. You said your root? Your home? Alina was fully in panic. That's right, young one. I, Gleam, am the elder of this sanctuary. It is my home. Alina heard Gleam and elder, then collapsed in the water. PayPal. Me/Eldokmizi. Patreon, remove. Patreon.com/Eldokmizi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.